Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of Apex After Hours, live after ALGS. Fallout here, joined alongside my co-host in Snip3down, Eric. We are back. Going to be a great show. How are you feeling, my man?
Feeling good. Had a really fun time watching both sets. I think we have some interesting storylines going into these days, and just excited to have the show back. We got some great guests, and just ready to get right into it.
You nailed it. Some interesting storylines is certainly an understatement. Here's the agenda for the day. For those that are wondering, we'll be talking, of course, all things ALGS kickoff weekend. Day 1 and day 2 just wrapped up. Falcons dominated. Teams like E8, maybe not necessarily the best start they would have wanted. We'll be chatting about all of those key storylines. Is SSG also a God squad alongside this Falcons roster after their day 2 performance? And of course, after that, we'll talk meta discussion. We'll talk state of Apex, state of ranked, and some wish list items for competitive Apex. And of course, we'll wrap up with final and closing thoughts. It's not just going to be Eric and I talking all show long. As Eric mentioned, very fortunate to be welcoming in two amazing guests. Super excited to bring Verholst back to the show. And for the very first time debuting on After Hours is We the People. Gentlemen, how are we feeling? Verholst, starting with you.
Feeling good. Excited to talk about some Apex. Excited to talk about how this really just played out. Some crazy games today, and excited to talk to you guys.
I'm good, man. I'm good. How you guys doing, man?
Doing good, Pete. Excited to have you on, man. Bringing all the vibes and checking in on our vibes as well. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's gonna be a good conversation today. Like we said at the top, quite a bit to talk about, and of course, we're gonna start off. We just wrapped up ALGS Day 2. That's one of the best things about this show. We go live immediately following ALGS Pro League, and of course, a lot to break down in that. Space Station Gaming wins by 1 point after what seemed like a hero Game 6 performance from Falcons to steal first place. SSG ends up on top with the dub. Eric, I mentioned at the top of the show, I want to start by getting your thoughts. I want to hear from each of you. I've been tweeting it, I've been saying it. Do you think this SSG squad is being slept on as almost as powerful of a God squad as this Falcons roster? Do you think that you could use the term God squad to define this SSG roster?
I think in terms of mechanical skill, you absolutely have to. I think Phony's not on that team to be the mechanical god of that roster. I think that he really just wanted to find two people that could carry the load in the team fights, that he could really rely on, and then he puts them in the right spots. So, I mean, coming from first-hand experience, like I know Phony hasn't always been comfortable with a lot of his teams with team. There's no way that he doesn't have that with his current roster. And luckily for us, we got to see back-to-back days of them kind of head-to-head against Falcons. And if we're going to talk about God squads, the SSG roster was the first team to actually TDM the Falcons roster, and they beat them. Like they only played one game, but they did win that first TDM against each other, to kind of showcase that they can match that firepower of the Falcons. Both those teams, I think SSG got third yesterday, Falcons first, SSG first today, Falcons second. So I think throughout Pro League, we're going to be seeing those two teams, I think, carry the weight near the top, as they do have the slaying power ahead of, I think, almost every other team that's playing in this split.
Eric came prepared with the data points and the facts. I love it. First, I want to bring it over to you. One, just to kind of +1 and speak and maybe shed light on that TDM stat. Do you think that actually constitutes God Squad in any way, or is that not factored in? And then two, I want to ask you straight up, yes or no, your take, do you think SSG can be deemed the same label as this Falcons roster?
I think TDMs definitely help a lot. Like if you're a really good TDM team, it does transfer over to the game quite a bit. I don't think it's the end all be all. I think you can be insane at TDMs and still not be as good as SSG or Falcons. I think everyone on SSG brings a lot to the table outside of TDMs as well. Like they're all three like really smart players. They get made fun of a lot for just being like purely mechanical players, especially Koifel. But I think Koifel especially has been really like smart recently. He's gotten a lot better at BR than he has been over the last like. He's gotten a lot better at BR over the last year for sure. Like he's became a way smarter player, and yeah, I think TDMs like they're super useful, but they're not gonna turn your team into SSG or Falcons right away. But they are helpful. As far as like SSG being like a super team, I definitely think they're slept on quite a bit. I think they don't get as much like showtime as they should. I guess maybe they don't stream as much as they should, but they're definitely right now probably everyone's in their second to Falcons right now. I definitely think Falcons is still better than SSG. I think Falcons is just a bit more well-rounded, and they have the same mechanical skill that SSG does, but I think they're just a bit smarter and a bit more disciplined playing than SSG is. But I think everyone would agree that they're second to Falcons right now.
Another way to put it, and then people want to get your final take on that, but another way to put it then, would you say, Verholst, to wrap up your thought, Falcons in an S tier by themselves, SSG right behind them in like an A+ tier?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I'll do that.
All right, Peeps, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, these guys are phenomenal, man. for them to be able to have the consistency that they have. I wouldn't necessarily, and this is no disrespect to these three fellas at SSG, because they're three of the best people to ever play this game and ever touch this game. But I think putting them in the same bracket as Falcons, when we got Hal, who, one of the greatest IGLs, between him and Zero. Then you got Zero on the squad, and you got Jen Burton, somebody who we all thought was cheating when he first started playing NA. It's a little bit different, but at the same time, you got Koi, bro. That guy was the hottest free agent on the market. Another guy that some people were like, is he cheating? Because he is just that good. I think Phony is a phenomenal IGL as well, and I think he's a little bit slept on that. But we'll see. Time will tell, but I would put him just a tiny little bit below Falcons.
I want to add one more thing onto that real quick. Is SSG is they'll be able to put up the fights against Falcons, I think, in the straight up 3v3 team fights. When it comes to everything else that it means to win, like Falcons have the winningest players in the game who were on two separate rosters. Like, I'm taking them over SSG and any pick at all, especially when we're coming to tournaments, finals, lands, until SSG proves otherwise. So, everyone knows what to expect from Falcons and that their expectations are high. I think those expectations being that high on SSG could also, if they don't come out swinging on these lands, is we going to see that affect them? Is that going to, change how they perform with a couple bad games, or who knows? But I think that their ceiling is right up there.
Yeah, I'll just kind of wrap up that topic by I was going to say the same thing. I think the ceiling is what you need to talk about. I think they have a ceiling that absolutely allows them to potentially one day be in that same S tier and potentially be a God squad alongside these guys. Of course, pound for pound, if you compare their resumes, you can't put them in the same category. You're talking about the three players on one roster that have won every single tournament except for one now in Apex Legends LAN history, every major event. Of course, you can't compare them as it currently stands, but I really absolutely do believe Phony is an IGL, I think he's a top 3, top 5 IGL in the game. And of course, Koiful's so good that to your point, people, he's the reason Eric's not on that roster anymore. He's so good, Eric wanted to pick him up. Which is, by the way, like the weirdest thing. Sorry, I had to do it. The weirdest thing to me is anytime SSG does well, I have like 3 or 4 random toxic people in my DMs being like, "See, SSG's so good without your boy Eric." I'm like, I never said they were not good. Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm not rooting for their downfall by any means.
I made the comment originally, hey, if Koi was brought up to replace me, like, I get it. I was like, if there's a player, there's a few people that you're always like, okay, like, I can see where the conversation has, and Koi's obviously been on everyone's radar for a long time, so I think he's got a team that he's super comfortable with. I mean, he's thrown some shade at some of his previous rosters as well. And I think that he's with his friends and he's comfortable, and that's a team that is kind of, I think they're closer knit, they're comfortable, and they trust each other. So,
yeah, exactly. I think you're go ahead, Pete, please.
I got a question and a statement here, right? So, Snipe, have you talked about the whole like Phony situation on the podcast yet? Because I would love for you to just put an end all.
No, I talked about it. I talked about it last week, and I even got on like a phone call with him, and I talked for like 30 minutes, and we kind of just like. I mean, I just wanted to explain where the whole thing stemmed from. There's a huge disconnect of when we stopped actually officially talking, and then it just became a bunch of I go on stream, he talks about it on stream, and then it's a bunch of people taking each other's words and throwing them around. I don't think he had an idea of where I was coming from, and I'm glad that on that call we kind of cleared that up. I think there were some still things like, but it just we don't have to be friends and like each other. Like you don't have to force something. You don't have to like everything. I mean, I'm still going to be like. I'll still civil. I'm not going to go out of my way to do anything. And I said this on stream last time. I'm not going to keep throwing wood on the fire when, there's things that are already clearly affecting him when, he's tweeting and he apologized to me about that. I'm not trying to send a hate mob onto anyone. So I'm going to just we dealt with it in private. People are close, know around us. And that's all that it really needs to be.
Actually, I didn't know you guys talked this week. You didn't tell me that. So if it's a private conversation or if you don't want to share, you don't share. But any insights on how that conversation went? Was he like receptive to some? I mean, I think he apologized.
Yeah. So real quick shout out Clara for the raid. Big raid, huge raid.
Look at Clara.
I love the Clara emotes in the chat. Drop them. Yeah, I mean, my whole thing was like, I just came from a spot of I just wanted it to be clear that like, I never shit talked him, badmouthed him to anyone, always had his back. I like really developed, a friendship and wanted to be close to him as a teammate. And I think that there was a huge lapse of like information and respect shown and just the whole way things went down. And I think it, if anything, just learn something from it. Life's about lessons, and I think there were a lot of things to take out of it, and I learned some things, and I hope it's up to him if he wants to take something out of it himself and apply that anywhere else. So.
I got a quick thing here. I think at the end of the day, a lot of us forget because, I think Apex is one of the closest like communities in like across all genres, right? We're all friends at the end of the day, but you guys are playing for millions of dollars, right? So it's business at the end of the day when somebody comes up and is like, "Oh, dude, I'm thinking about making a roster switch and this and that." And I wish some people took more of an approach to that while still having like the honor and the respect to just be what's the word I'm looking for? Transparent with one another, saying, "Hey, listen, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm doing." But it doesn't work out that way.
Yeah.
What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think some people have a hard time. And look, that is one true point. Another true point similar to that is people have to realize 18, 17 to 22, 23-year-olds that are developing from a maturity scale, maybe didn't have the college experience and, the full-time job experience or the life experience that others have had, and they're going to make mistakes, right? Like I think there's some grace that needs to come with that as well, and there's some recognition of that as well. So all that to say is, Phony and I exchanged quite a few DMs. He actually explained his full side of the story to me, and I reached out to him asking and kind of seeking it. Because same thing, my intention was never to obviously send a hate mob until he came after a good friend of mine, and but with that all said, I don't know. I hope that's the last we'll talk about that on this show, because we need to focus on the merits of this roster, and that's what should be highlighted and celebrated. People can think what they want and have their opinions on Koi for maybe some of his past behaviors or tweets. He's obviously young as well, and phony and whatever, but you can't deny this team is a fun team to watch. They're high caliber, and I think we'll put a nail in the coffin on that conversation from now on the podcast, so we can keep it based on their merits. But all I have to say is, I'm glad you brought that up, Peeps. Like, obviously, a lot of other stories here too. If we could do one thing, we could bring up the scoreboard one more time for today. I just want to kind of flash that again. We were so deep in the SSG discussion. BMIC is that good. So here's the scoreboard results from today. If they can also, our production team, tee up the scoreboard results from yesterday. I'd love to flash both of them, but I'll just do a quick run through for those that maybe missed all of ALGS and talk through what we saw today. Space Station obviously on top by 1 point. Falcons in Game 6 almost took back-to-back first place wins, just 2 points short of doing so. If it was a tie, SSG would have won the tiebreaker based on matches won. Oblivion in third place. We have to talk about that. A team not many would have expected to be there. We'll, of course, chat about that here in a little bit. Team Liquid with a massive Game 2 win was able to stay on top, and then consistency throughout. And then Vanity flat. Two other teams that maybe we wouldn't have talked about or predicted to be in our top 6 end up there. Obviously, on the flip side, Disguised, not the best performance. They're going to want that one back. Tripod showing some inconsistency, and Elevate, back-to-back 19th place finishes. So you already know those are some of the biggest topics we got to talk about today. Let's actually start with the E8 conversation. If we can, I want to get your guys' thoughts. This is a squad that a lot of fans were starting to love. The kind of arc of Zach Mazer returning as a top IGL, had a great roster, made a decision to drop Shooby, who's now on SKD, and now with this roster of Luxford and Slayer, it's looking a little interesting. Burrows, I want to hear your take and your thoughts on this team.
Man, I'm honestly surprised by like how poorly they're doing so far. Like I thought that they would do well. I feel like all three players in that team are pretty dang good. Obviously Slayer's reputation of being, kind of like the odd man out on his team, like getting caught out, throwing and whatnot. But I feel like he's improved a lot recently. I know Lux is insane. I mean, our team, like with Hal, had to contest Luxford and Tech, and I forgot what the third was, but yeah, Luxford was insane. Sorry, who was the third? I'm sorry. Someone said who was the third with Tech and Luxford? Does anyone remember?
Blanking.
What?
It's on the tip of my tongue, bro. But
oh
I
my
can't.
god,
A1s.
Yeah, the gear.
That's why I was
A1s.
laughing too, because I was like, "Yeah, you caught yourself here. I can't back you up."
Yeah. Lux was insane. Like, I mean, Lux literally won me theater team like 3 different times. I mean, he's insane.
He did.
I mean, I would think that his like individual firepower would just like bail them out of bad situations. It's like I don't know. I mean, I'm surprised by how their team is doing so bad. There has to be a bit of unluckiness. I feel like happening to them right now. Like maybe they've gotten some unlucky, just like bad zones or a couple teams just into them or whatnot. But I don't know. I'd be curious to watch their games back and see what actually is going wrong. 'Cause I feel like their team is good on paper. Like they have 3 good players. Like Luxford is just a beast. Zach has experience IGLing. I'd be really curious to see like why they're doing so poorly. I just don't know.
I know one thing that people have kind of brought up, and I think Tech talked about this, and even some of Luxford's past teammates, is that he might, his comms, I've played with him a couple times, his comms are either god tier, to where you're getting all the information in the world, or like, he doesn't like shut up, like, and just let you think as an IGL. And with Zach, the pressure that's on that team to go from a team that everyone thought and kind of wanted to stick together to then picking up new players, it's hard to like harp on your 2 teammates super, super hard. And I don't know if Zach just needs to kind of take over and make sure that everyone just kind of shuts up, because then you're focusing on all these comms you're getting from your teammates, and you want to respect those and get those opinions, and then you don't want to like disrupt things that are going on. But Zach has so much that he has to focus on with 2 new players, doesn't know their play styles, getting it all settled up. So maybe there's just too much information. Maybe there's a little counter calling going. But overall, I think, EA back-to-back 19 places, and they performed really well in scrims. So, I mean, this is another thing where, we're seeing teams, Liquid, who was getting absolutely obliterated in scrims, just got, top 5. And then you have E8, who was pretty much top 3, top 5 average in scrims throughout the past 2 weeks that they were together, 19th and 19th, back-to-back days. I thought they were going to bounce back today. I thought it was just a one day, okay, we came out, hearts were racing a little bit. But yeah, back-to-back days, we can look at some of the scores here, is a tough start to the season, and they're really going to have to pull something kind of out of their ass to make it up.
Yeah, I think it's tough, right? Like I'm no pro player, so I can't put myself in you guys' shoes. But playing with 2 new guys, having to get readjusted to everything, the way they play, the way they swing, how they call, it's definitely tough. So I do think that's part of it. But I was watching them a little bit yesterday, and I saw what you said about the counter calling, right? It almost seemed like Lux and Zach were butting heads a little bit. And I think at the end of the day, Lux, a phenomenal player. Like I've ranked with him, and he's pulled like 1v3s out of his ass like a magician. But I think he sort of needs to realize he's on the team to shoot his gun. Like that's his highest value, and sort of give up the reins a little bit to Zach, who is the IGL. But once they find that, just the momentum and that sweet spot, I think they're going to be good, man. I got faith. I mean, Zach IGL'd me to a 2nd place in Twitch Rivals against Snip3down, Hal, and Joe.
Don't say you ain't no pro player. I remember interviewing you on ALGS after you had a nice little finish. All right, you once competed.
I'm an ALGS LCQ winner, bro. That is nothing compared to Pro League or anything like that, man. But hey, I'll take my little fake tourney,
Fake tourney, best energy, by the way.
An LGS champion here.
You nailed. I think you nailed. The elephant in the room point, which is the Luxford and Zach dynamic. And at this point, they have to. Two Pro League matches in 19th place. Verls, you were telling us before, if you do 3 weeks in a row of that, like your chances of qualifying are almost slim to none. So like, is it do or die for them, Verls? So do you think they almost have to have like a mea culpa moment where they kind of figure it out now before it gets too late, or do you think they could bounce back?
I think it really comes down to this next week. Like if they do poorly this next week, I think they're just completely screwed. I think it's not coming back. This next week kind of is like an all or nothing for them. I think they basically have to go and just they have like 1 week to figure out what's going wrong, and that's just not a lot of time. Like this Pro League is pretty condensed compared to the last time, and they just don't have a lot of time to figure things out. It's gonna be really hard for them. They better be spending every waking hour trying to figure it out right now. I think it's looking pretty.
Here's one thing though,
right
they do have a week off next week, so that
they do.
They're one of the teams that are not playing like Falcons and others. So they basically have 2 weeks to figure it out. That certainly helps.
Well, that's definitely helpful. Yeah, I mean they're gonna need all those 2 weeks. Like if I'm them, like you can't be taking any time off. Like you just came 19th twice in a row. Clearly you didn't put enough time in, or maybe the time that you did spend wasn't efficient enough, and you and your team just have to talk things out and try and figure out what you've been doing wrong in training.
Okay, I got a question for you, Evan. Is it when it comes to like, because you're dealing with a bunch of different comms, when comms get too hectic, like is it just that much harder to process information, and that's where mistakes are made? Is because too many people are just like too many cooks in the kitchen when things are moving around? Because like when I listen to them, it just sounds like things get so panicky. And even a lot of the teams that I listen to, where like some people thrive in that. Like when I played with Roy Lunchbox and like Sola or Lethal, like they screamed call outs all the time, so I didn't have to talk. I had information, but when you have like 3 people giving that, because there's certain players, like even when I was with TSM, like I didn't have to talk that much because Jordan and Hal would give out so much information, so I could focus on strictly slaying, and it allowed me for more plays to open up because I had to focus on that more. When there's too much communication, do you think that could just be like a panic moment and no one can kind of like group the team up and there's no one there to do that?
I definitely think so. Yeah, I think too much communication can be a huge issue. If you have 3 players that like aren't concise and clear with their comms, like just throwing out useless information, it really kind of just blocks the flow of communication and blocks the flow of ideas. Like if it kind of stems down to like if you have 3 players that aren't confident in what to do, there's going to be a lot more talking than what there needs to be. Like because then everyone's trying to share ideas, everyone's trying to figure out what to do because nobody knows what to do. I think that's where a lot of it stems from. Like if you have 3 players that are talking a lot, it's because no one knows what to do, and I feel like that's the root cause of the issue. If one player knows what knows what to do,
Evan, is this a semi-fair statement? It kind of felt like that when you were streaming with Designful. It kind of did. Is that a semi-fair statement, or do you disagree?
No, I don't think our comms are that crazy with Designful. I think Designful was hard IGLing when we were playing.
He was hard IGLing.
He was hard IGLing. There was no like conflict as far as like comms are going. I mean, we were just following his lead.
Yep.
I think it was just a matter of his playstyle is really weird and we're not used to it. Like it required,
that's probably the don't know what to do. I was sensing a don't know what to do, and it was kind of like understanding how to play in his playstyle. That's probably it.
Yeah, he's a one of a kind playstyle. It's hard to follow him sometimes. Like he's a very unique. Like he's only played Edge his entire career. He's never once played Zone, and he has like a very kind of like niche way of playing Edge. He has a lot of zone wraps. Takes a lot of fights that aren't you're not really supposed to win, like one-sided fights. I feel like, and he's got a very unique playstyle. But yeah, comms like. Too much comms can definitely hurt your team a lot. I think an example of someone who has really, really good comms, who unfortunately isn't playing right now, but was Skittlecakes. I think Skittlecakes had like the best comms in the game for a long period of time. He was like always super like concise with his comms. He never said more than he needed to.
Interesting.
And the things that he did say were always like really impactful, like bits of info. Like he would not talk too much. He would only say you could tell he was thinking before he spoke. Like he wasn't the same what's on his mind. He was like saying what's useful and saying he understood like what he was going to say and how it was going to affect his team, and like things that might distract your teammates. Like it's really easy to overcome in Apex, and I think he was like the prime example of perfect comms.
Actually, that's a good micro point, and I'd like to call all your takes there, Eric, especially you. What I've noticed in many years of competing and playing and listening to teams, it's one of 2 extremes or somewhere in the middle, right? On the far left extreme is like the super hectic, crazy comms, which is nonstop, kind of, Hal's, I think, in that category, really, hectic comms overall. On the far right, very calm, precise. You only say what you need to, chill. Eric, if I think of Halo as a reference, like Tox, kind of on the far right in terms of a lot more chill and relax. Final Boss, or other teams that were like kind of crazy and hectic and comms nonstop is the other side of that spectrum. You've been on a lot of teams with varying in that range. Where do you think is the sweet spot? Is it somewhere in the middle, or do you think that that kind of one style fits or they're superior better than the other?
I mean, I think having them in the middle is the best case as long as the spread is appropriate. Because, like, I like calm comms to gather the plan, but then, like, when you're putting the plan into motion, one person needs to dominate the comms, and it's fine when that person's being hectic and calming it, as long as everyone's on board with like that person's commanding the troops to follow the plan that we had laid out. It's when like it's when things are not calmed, and then you get hectic, and all of a sudden everyone's piling on with information that people start running around in different directions trying to listen, and you can't figure out the priority on what comms are important versus what isn't. Because then, like, if you're loud all the time, then like that's then the middle ground for like priority comms. Whereas like if we're all quiet, it's like okay, everything's quiet. Then one loud comes in, that's the prio comm, because that's the loud one and that's the one taking initiative. If all of a sudden it's everyone getting prioed, then I'm like, my brain is scattering. I'm all over the place because it's too much to decipher it and choose from. So it's pick as you go. And I mean, comms is one of the most underrated. I mean, I'm gonna shout out Nick Merckx because I think that was his best asset in his gameplay. If you listen to his comms, he had good comms, like constant information flowing, getting his teammates talking, good ideas. Like maybe they weren't executed, but his comms were, I think, his best asset. And there's certain things from each player that like are their A+ characteristics. So comms go a long way in comp for sure.
I will say as a viewer too, bro, I love it when comms get crazy, bro. They're like, on the left, swinging, and
Throw
I
some
think
shit talk in there too, every once in a while.
I love that. I think we need more shit talk in esports. Nothing personal. I tweeted this out. Nothing personal, like family, parents, girlfriends, nothing like that. But like, just good old shit talking, right?
Game,
but I will
shit on him. This kid's trash.
Oh, absolutely, man. But I will say in ALGS, I think we're missing a little bit of that, like the in-game comms that they do.
Too much camaraderie.
What was that?
There's too much camaraderie,
dude. It's something, but yeah, I think ALGS needs more like in-game comms, bro. Like not every single end zone, but like just pick a team, ride out with them for a little bit, because think about how many amazing moments we've got from just comms. I can't name any off the top of my head, so that's not helping my case right now. But, dude,
some legendary listen-ins over the years.
It's all post-death listen-ins, dude. It's always after they die. That's
Let's get some competitive proximity chat, and let's really make it interesting.
Yes,
we can just throw that in the mix,
please.
That would solve the problem of trash talk really quickly. That'd be fantastic. Make that a feature. All right, let's move on from comms. I was a little kind of subtopic rabbit hole there, but good to get your takes. From all three of you there. I want to go back to E8 if that's okay. Wrap up that conversation, then wrap up day 2, and we'll jump into day 1. But I think we have to ask the question: did Zach make a monumental decision deciding to make a roster change after the event, and would it have even made a difference with Zap and potentially eventually joining TSM either way? But do you think Zach dropping Shooby, shaking things up despite that roster showing so many good things at the last LAN was a mistake? I'll let anyone take that.
I mean, yes. I kind of said it early on. I think that you had success with the roster. I think that it was definitely a mistake. I mean, this is something that, this is kind of fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, with the situation where they dropped Noct for Albert Lely early on after a really dominant performance. I think they had most kills in one of the Pro League splits, and they ended up getting second place because the team, they won match point. I think that was when 100 Thieves won match point forever ago. And they dropped
Noct for Albert Lely,
and then
man,
yeah, and I mean Mac was still like, that was still really high profile. That was like, he was one of the best players in the game, high reputation. But sometimes it's just about how the unit works together more than picking up one specific player. I mean, we saw that with kind of like Koiful on last split. Now they have Reptar, and they just made their way to EWC. It's a mixture of players and how they work together. You can't put a bunch of negatives together to make one thing, and it kind of sucks, but this mistake kind of broke down to a lot of different factors as well. There was a lot more on the outside than it being a swap one player in and out. But I mean, I'm pulling for Zach. Big fan of him. Big fan of the comeback career that he's had. He's worked his way up, fell back down, worked his way all the way back up, and I know he's not shy to that adversity. So we'll see where it goes. But as of right now, yeah, not kind of a
mistake.
Man, I'll say I think E8 was like really, really good with that roster, and I feel like them splitting up was a mistake. I feel like their team was so good at LAN and Pro League leading up to finals. It was just that one contest, man, where they contested Cito against, was it Nasky's
07.
team? That was literally what killed their team. Like Nasky, I'll say it, Nasky literally disbanded their team. He just straight up killed their team.
He really
did. That was what it came down to. Like Nasky just ruined them. Like they just got rolled contest 5 times in a row. And it's like their mental shot they'll never ever forget that day. Like they just lost.
You can't recover from that as a team.
It's over. They're like yeah.
You will remember
losing contest 5 times in one day on finals day against Nasky of all people. Like no,
he's holding that over your head for sure. Yeah,
it's gonna be hard to recover. And I think maybe that's probably one of the biggest reasons they split up, because that team was really talented and they're super good. They just couldn't win contest for whatever reason. I don't know.
I was confused by that too.
Then they refused to stop contesting because of pride, or whoever knows what. That might be the best single quote ever on this show. Nasky single-handedly disbanded Zach's team, which is great. Can we put that on a poster? Nasky's gonna hang that up in his office, in his gaming room. That's awesome. Deep, I know you're gonna get some words in there. Any final thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, no, I wish instead of finals, obviously it's hard to look back and like be happy with that, with the contests and whatnot, but I wish what they took out of finals in LA was that 30-point game and saw the potential that they truly had. I think those guys are phenomenal.
Good point.
And it kind of sucks for Zach, to basically start over from block one with 2 new players. And I got a quick question for V over here though. If it wasn't for Zapdo, right, who would you guys have picked? And if it is design, who was going to be behind design?
Well, design was like our first option or our first tryout, but he decided to stay on DSG after 2 days. So we were gonna try design. It didn't go super well. And other like options other than Zap, we really didn't have that many options. I know Shaking Flame reached out, even though it was in Apex South. He said he'd move over and he would consider playing with us. But we just figured like logistically it'd be hard because we'd only have like a couple days to practice with him.
Dude, I didn't know that. That's a fire team.
That's a bomb.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, he would have like had to fly over and get a place in Canada, which would have been like that would have taken like a week on its own, and we only had a few days left to practice, and it's like it might have just been hard because he's coming to NA too, and it's like he's not used to playing against NA lobbies, and it's just a risk. Like we just don't know. We don't know how he's gonna work in NA. Like we don't know how he's gonna tolerate like IGL on us. Like it just seems like it'd be hard to get used to. Yeah, and just
Absolutely.
like having him move all the way over, just like for it to be like really risky like that, we just felt like we almost wouldn't want to like do that to him, so to speak. Like bring us onto our team with like 2 days left to practice and just hope to God it works out. It's like if it doesn't,
what was the one thing I taught
Canada.
you? Gambling in the UK together. What was the one thing I taught you? You remember? It was a phrase. Well, it was 2 things. One was scared money don't make money. Second was you gotta risk it for the biscuit. That in my eyes, if you
Did
guys
you play with them
risk,
online? Like
No,
did you
no,
play
we
them
never
online? Did you
both
scare
them.
them?
No,
You didn't
could
play
you
with
have?
them.
Well, I would have ran with them online or something. That would have been a hell of a
Yeah,
pickup.
we
could
tried
run
one
with
day.
them.
We were trying to design full the time, and we just felt like he was a more like realistic option. And I mean, other than design full and Shaking Flame, like other options, we threw Luxford's name out there. Didn't talk about him a lot, but we were definitely considering Luxford. Who else? I think we considered
Shooby at all?
dropped Shooby.
Was Shooby a consideration at all?
No, I don't. We never talked about Shooby. I don't know if like because we didn't know Shooby was a free agent right away. I guess I don't know. We never talked about Shooby for whatever reason. But yeah, dropped. I know dropped offered to play.
He could have been interesting. I think he's a good like zone traditional IGL, hard IGL or IGL. Yeah. All of those compared to Strafing Flame. I'm sorry, dude. I'm that's a cool factoid you dropped here. Anyone else? I'm gonna make it awkward if the answer is no. But did you guys consider Snipe at all? The return of Snipe down to TSM? Yeah,
we thought about it, but no, we just figured it wouldn't work out. We just figured like I'm sorry, Snipe. We just figured like we either wanted like a super experienced IGL or someone who's just like pure firepower.
Yeah,
and we felt like Zap was just pure firepower. And little did we know he also has a bit of a voice too. I mean, he contributes a lot to macro, and he studies the game.
I just saw some indecisiveness in the calls and was like, "Hey, I'll throw us into the fire pit. It might work, it might not, but I'll definitely make some decisions if because I do think that's one thing that you guys lack on. You guys either like you guys don't full commit to things and like you ask a lot of questions instead of just like seeing the plan through, and then the window of opportunity can kind of disappear in front of you. Whereas like before it was you knew when the call was made, and now I think we talked about this a little more. You're kind of deferring to Jordan for the final call, and you guys are feeding a lot of information, and Zap is giving a lot of information as well. I think that's just going to come with time. So
my producer BMic just took the biggest bait in chat. Tech said, "We just going to pretend Reps and I didn't talk on the phone for 3 hours," and he's spamming me saying, "You got to bring this up on the broadcast." Was Tech considered at any point?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, man, Tech was like one of the top IGLs. We were thinking, no, I'm kidding. We didn't consider Tech. Sorry, Tech.
Okay, John, spamming is I don't know about spamming.
There's eyes spamming on my screen. That looks like the stream.
It's a Discord emoji. Chill on my name.
Discord emoji. All right. Nonetheless, that's interesting perspective there. And the last thing on the EA thing is, I was mentioning, did Zach make a decision? But the one thing none of you guys covered, and else you could just put this to bed. Do you think it's irrelevant if Zach shouldn't have dropped Shooby because Zap would have left regardless? Do you think Zap would have left that team regardless? Or do you think there's a world where Zap stays on E8 if that roster stays together, kind of like Design decided to?
I would guess that Zap probably would have left regardless.
Okay, it's kind of a moot point.
Actually, I don't know because I think Zap maybe only Zap left because he knew that we were giving him an offer. Like if we never gave him an offer, he might have stayed because we don't know who else he would play with. I don't know. It's hard to say. I wouldn't speak for him. I wouldn't say like if Shooby was still there, would he have left? And if we didn't offer him, would he have still left?
Yep. Interesting
hard to
take
say.
nonetheless. And then last thing, did you get the fact that you said Nasky ended his career? Is that inside info from talking to Talmadge? Because rumor had it Talmadge was like really upset and said, "I'm going to leave. I'm going to be an LFT if you continue to contest." Is that a true story?
I don't. He didn't say that exactly.
Okay.
He did tell me that it was Zach's decision to like force the contest, and that Talmadge was against it. Talmadge did not want to do the contest. Apparently, no one wanted to do the contest, but Zach was like persistent. They needed to contest Cedo. That's from what I've heard. That's the story. Zach just really wanted to contest because they had checkpoint, I think, but he wanted to get Cedo, and yeah, that just cost him like. Which
is so funny because we had Design on the show last week. I don't know if you watched, but we brought up the fact that the opposite happened. They could have kept you guys from qualifying for London or champs, I think it was, by contesting you. They're contesting you in scrims, if you remember last season, and then they decided Pro League Day not to contest you, and that was when you guys qualified last minute.
Which popped off.
So, yeah, it's a crazy story. Nonetheless, just to wrap up that conversation and kind of the day, some of the day one conversations. There's one other topic I want to bring up. One of the big stories I have to bring up too is Loopy, the ex-coach of Optic. He actually leads an esports program in Minnesota, I believe. Amazing individual. He's now coaching E8. He has 2 weeks to work with this team. If there's ever a time where a coach can step up and make an impact, it's now. Review all the VODs, what didn't go wrong. I'm excited to see if Loopy, Zach, Slayer, and Luxford can figure it out, and if EA can turn things around. It's going to be a key story. Definitely wouldn't surprise me, based on Zach's trajectory and ups and downs of his career, if he finds a way to turn it around. But with that said, a lot of the other last topic for day one I want to talk about, we obviously talked about SSG. We've talked a bit about Falcons. We'll talk more about that. I want to talk about the Darkhorse team. So if we can whip up the scoreboard one more time for day two. I think it's Oblivion in third place. Oh, this is day one. Okay. We'll pull up, if we can get day two up there, you're the best. Thank you. Oblivion in third place, Vanity in fifth place, which is amazing. Stunny always finds a way to kind of climb his back way into Apex, which is awesome to see. Crook on that team, former Oxygen. Oxygen played really, really well with Crook back in the day, and he got dropped. Justice for Crook never became a thing, but perhaps it should have been. I like that squad. They did solid. Fifth place is great. And then, of course, Oblivion. Reeds joins this team. Speaking of getting dropped from Oxygen, Reeds gets replaced on Oxygen, joins Oblivion, and gets third. Would like your guys' take on those two kind of dark horse teams. And do you think they have what it takes to stay consistent?
I mean, you want to go? Go ahead, Peep. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I think I speak for the majority of viewers, at least, right? I can't speak for the pro players. I did not see those guys coming, landing where they're at in the leaderboards, and that's no disrespect to these guys. You guys are, some of the best players in the world, but there's a lot of tremendous teams in the bottom 10, right? Which is more surprising than that. Reed's joining Oblivion. I think that's a phenomenal pickup by Oblivion. I'm actually super surprised at Oxygen's decision to sort of drop Reeds. I really want to know where that came from and what happened there. But shout out to these guys, man. Fifth and third place. They got to be feeling good. Snipe, you had some thoughts?
Yeah,
on it?
I'm looking at just this graphic that Tempo had sent me. I'm trying to compare the placements to where the zones ended. Because OBV was at Countdown, SSG was at Sky East, and then trying to see where.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that too. That's
I was just trying to see where Falcons landed, because they were some of the top 5 teams there.
Fissure and Launchpad.
Fissure.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. I'll just copy.
There's Fissure
for you.
Yeah, that's interesting. They didn't. I mean, they got. I don't know what place they were in after World's Edge. I don't know if they had as.
Because I just think a lot of these placements and a lot of these dark horse teams, like it's like we talked about the other day on After Hours. It's going to come down to who can rotate from different POIs and play different POIs the best. And I think we're accustomed to a lot of teams that have played certain sides of the map in certain areas nonstop, and we're also seeing a lot of zones in the same spots. Like we saw 3 skyhook zones basically in the first 3 games of the that's where it was, right? It was pretty much 3 skyhook zones for the first 3 World's Edge games, right? I know I saw 2 for sure. I don't know if I'm drawing a blank here.
Oblivion and Countdown, it makes sense. Yeah.
There was another one that was over in Overlook, I think is where it kind of ended.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just like we have zones that are going into some areas. We have, and that could also be taken into account when you're picking maps. Like, are we gonna first pick a map with a worse spot, like down where zones are ending, whether it's on the south side for Storm Point or the north side for World's Edge? And I think that analysts and coaches are going to play a huge factor into a lot of these picks. And I think that there's a skill there that's going to be, I think that can be taken advantage of, especially for some of these teams that are on the fringe. And this is like a saying and a quote is, if you wake up and you learn something that's 1%, that's 1% on to every single day that can add up to hundreds of percents of improvement, of just taking the time to learn something slightly different every single day. And this is a new trait with the zones and the draft system that I think, some people are just thinking, oh, we'll just take whatever we can get, when there's a lot more that can be thought out to go into that to help your team get a couple better placements, or even 1 point can change, a huge standing at the end of it all.
Evan, give us the final take on these. I want to shine the light back on Oblivion and Vanity. Final take on those rosters and the question I kind of asked. Do you think that the rosters have what it takes to be consistent?
I feel like we always see these players like have one or two pop off weeks throughout Pro League, but I feel like they're never consistent. I wouldn't guess that they're. I mean, I hate to like predict they're not going to make it to land, but I wouldn't guess these teams are both going to be top 12. I feel like Stunny's team always comes really close. I think was he with Drop In Gaming last split? They were like 13th or something. They were so close. I think Stunny's team could do it with that. They were like some part of a bit of luck for them. Maybe they just need to put in a little bit more time to just push themselves right over the edge. Like I feel like they're so close, but they just haven't gotten there. I just feel like these teams won't be consistent. That's my guess. I don't think we'll see these placements consistently. I think they have some lucky zones, maybe some lucky team fights happening next to them, lucky spots. But I just wouldn't guess they'll be able to consistently perform like this.
I think it's a fair take. Yeah, I think Stunny's one person that I don't think people talk enough about. He's gone. I mean, run through some shit with DIG, that roster, and that I think he has had so much adversity in his career. I have a lot of respect for him as an individual. And you're right, 13, they're right there. And we'll see if this can be the roster that finally turns it around. If they can stay consistent, they certainly have a lot of work to do. So we'll put a cork in that topic for day 2. Again, that's the wrap up for the day 2 conversation. Let's now shift over to day 1. Obviously, we want to hear your thoughts for host on TSM's performance. But let's start with the scoreboard and the leaderboard, if we can, for day number 1, recapping the day of action. I think everyone knows the biggest story from day 1. Well, Falcons dominated, started off Pro League as everyone expected them to do, but maybe no one expected 30 points over Tripods in second place. And on the opposite side of that spectrum, everyone expected Falcons to do well. I don't know if anyone or many people would have predicted a top 2 from Tripods. They had a poor day 2, though, so we'll talk about them in a little bit. And consistency, SSG, third place, first place today. And, of course, Oxygen, NRG, LG, CCE, another team you definitely have to talk about. I left them out of my kind of recap tweet, and I regret doing that. I think that's a team that's been fun to follow in their Challenger Circuit Pro League journey. Cap and the boys. Skidmark, not Moist in 10th. Maybe some people would have predicted a top 5 from Moist. And then TSM there in 11th, and you'll see the rest on the right side of your screen. So that's the day 1 recap. Let's start with the conversation with the Falcons chatter. I want to ask all 3 of you, is there any world, do you think there's a chance that Falcons does not get first place this Pro League split? Eric, start with you.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think there's a chance. I think it's going to come down to, honestly, them and SSG. I mean, we just saw back-to-back days of the kills in Pro League, and I think that they're just going to take as many fights and hone it. And we saw DZ dominate last split. They dominated in group stages. It's a team that's going to always be near the top. So if I'm going to be a betting man, I would probably put my money on Falcons to win the Pro League split in overall points for sure.
Keep you agree?
I'm right there with Snipe, man. I mean, I think at the end of the day, we do play a game that's RNG based, right? And they are a brand new team, but like I said earlier, bro, you put in 3 of the greatest players to ever touch this game, together. I think the first ever like super team that we've ever seen at this caliber. So yeah, like Snipe said, I would put my money on them if I had to bet, but at the end of the day, it's anybody's game, man. We could have, a couple pop-off weeks for some of these teams, and they could take first.
Girls, you agree?
Definitely agree. I feel like SSG and Falcons are just a bit ahead of everybody else right now. It just feels like everybody else is playing catch-up to them. Everyone's watching their POVs, seeing what they're doing that we're not. Everyone's learning from them. Everyone's watching them to see what we could do better. And they're also a bit ahead in every category, really, like a bit better at fighting, a bit better at making the right calls, a bit better at guessing zones. They do everything right, and they're a team that you have to really study. They're both teams that you have to study and learn from.
I want to ask you a couple questions on this roster on the Falcons topic. You know Hal better than anybody, or better than many. Better than many. a lot of questions like, can he step down and not IGL? Can he be a pure fragger? I think he's obviously shown that he can, but your thoughts on was that an easy transition for him? I mean, do you think that people were giving him too hard of a time on that topic? Do you think he has the ability to kind of be that fragger, play that fragger role for the team?
I mean, he definitely has the ability to play that fragger role. I think anyone that's like anyone that thinks he's like wouldn't be able to step down in IGL, I think that's just a dumb take. Like you can take an IGL and throw him on another team with an IGL and just like tell one person to not IGL, and I think it'll be fine. Like Hal, I also think Hal respects Zero a lot. Like he trusts his calls quite a bit. I think that's really important too, because he knows to just shut up sometimes and just listen to him. And he's like completely fine with that because he knows that Zero's making calls that are arguably better than calls he's ever made. I know Hal said himself that he thinks Zero's a better IGL than he is. And and he's fine with fragging out. I think Hal's an insane fragger. He's like watching Hal now, like you would think he's just purely a fragger. I mean, he puts out so much damage in fights with his team. And just today I watched him 1v3 E8, which is pretty insane. Definitely puts in the work fragging. And he's kind of like reminds me of skill kicks a bit in his current role, where he's kind of just like really like clean, concise comms. He's not like speaking more than he needs to. He's way quieter than he ever has been. But the things he does say are just purely useful information, not saying more than he needs to. And I think it's actually a really good role for him right now.
Smooth transition. Do you think Hal is a natural born leader? Because I think for some people that are just like natural born leaders, it'd be hard for them to not naturally want to lead. Or do you think he like had to kind of work his way into that leadership IGL role?
I wouldn't say he's a natural born leader. No, I think he worked his way up to it. I think he became really, really good at the game and knowledgeable, and his skill basically allowed him to lead a team. I don't think he has like necessarily like inherent leadership qualities, but I think he understood the game better than anybody else for a long time. And I think that's where it looks like, he's like the best leader, but in reality, he just knows the game. Like for a long time, he just knew the game better than anybody else did. And he would just like know what to do in situations. So he's just really confident in his calls, and he knew what his teammates had to do as well. And he was just really, really like smart and just knew the game well.
I would agree. I think both of your takes you just gave are spot on. I think the transition's been smooth like butter, and it's shown, especially on Bloodhound, his ability to frag. And I do think if you meet Hal in person, he's more introverted, right? I think I think for that reason, he had a much easier time stepping back into the fragger role, just pure great comms, knowing the game, playing the game, focusing on that role better than anyone. I think it's been really impressive. Last question I want to ask on this topic, because I think it's one I also have to ask. I know, just from getting dinner with him in Austin a couple weeks ago or a month ago, I know how hard that decision was for him to leave you guys. You guys are his brothers, his best friends. He looked at you as family. Did you shed any light on why he made that decision? Do you think it was just simply because the opportunity was too good to play with Jen Burton and Zero, or do you think there's more to it in terms of some internal stuff that was going on that maybe in hindsight, looking back, you could shed some light on?
I think the main motive was that he just thought they'd just be better teammates for him. They're just better players, like overall. I think that they would just be better because they were just better teammates. Now it's just the end decision. I think like the motivation for it was just that they would just perform better. I really don't think it had anything to do with money or like the contract or anything. I think it was just a matter of he thought that he would win more with that team, which is fair. It's business at the end of the day. And I also think he admires Zero quite a bit. Like he really likes Zero's play style. He knows how good Zero is. He knows how good Jen is. And I feel like in the back of Hal's mind, he's always wanted to play with like another like top IGL, because like everyone's always had like the idea of like, what if like two top IGLs played together? Like would they pop off? Like would one of these super teams work? And I think he's trying that out. There's only so many years left in his career, and it doesn't hurt to try things out. And I've no hard feelings towards him. Like it wasn't super emotional for us. We understood at the end of the day it was just business, and I think that was the biggest motivation. He just thought he would win more with that team, and that's fair.
Appreciate you shedding light on that topic. Pete, Snipe, anything else on this Falcons roster?
Not really. We've hammered this team pretty hard. At this point, I'm just hoping for a week so we have something else to talk about. They kind of drop the ball one of these weeks, and we can have some blow ups between the squads. So we'd be like, "Oh, we told you." And I'm hoping that it's not just all a bunch of first top 3 placements, and that we get there's been a couple instances where we've seen some content of Hal getting yelled at or whatever it is, and I think that's kind of what a lot of people are waiting on, hoping on for some spicy content. I don't think they want to see them just win everything. I think they want the personalities to clash, and hey, I'm all for it. I'm down for some content because they're gonna make LAN anyway, and let's make it at least fun along the way.
Dude, I'll say watching Hal getting ripped is great.
I'm enjoying it from the sidelines. I know I know you're loving it, Evan. I'm sure Jordan is just in the shadows in his dark room, just like just biggest grin on his face. And
no, exactly. It's fun to watch. They're really fun to watch. Like especially scrims too. Like maybe they're taking it less seriously and they lose some games they shouldn't lose, and it's just fun to watch.
Yeah, him getting called the hindsight king when I got railed for that exact same thing was like
you think it's funny I'm getting ripped?
Apex moment.
You think it's funny I'm getting ripped?
For me in a long Yes.
Yeah? No, I was just watching. I was like, what is this guy doing? Why is he so loud? And then I realized, he was making fun of me.
He actually was. How does it feel, buddy?
I love it because Zero sometimes he's right, but sometimes he's wrong. And today he was wrong, and it's okay. It's okay.
Does he think he was wrong?
No, he does not. Of course he doesn't.
Go on, Evan.
What do you expect from an IGL? Like, come on.
Are you sure he was wrong?
I know Zero's watching right now. Suck a dick. I carried you today. Evan carried you today.
Oh my god,
okay?
he's gonna
I carried your ass today. All right.
He treats you like how he treats Sykes. You're like the
but I'm
not.
The
little bro.
Listen, I can think for myself. So like when he can like berate me whatever he wants, but I know what he's saying. It's not like I'm just gonna be like, yeah, I fucking suck. That's not how it is. Like, is compared to Sykes and who's the other person they play with?
Sykes is just catching strays.
They don't. Yeah, we're not the same. It's not the same.
Levels.
Yeah, it's so funny. Sykes caught a stray after they won yesterday on the broadcast. Zero just went on and instantly just like hammered on Sykes just for Hal to come in the room and just basically say Sykes doesn't have a brain. I at least know what he's saying when he yells at me.
What is he saying?
He's talking about how Zero just dogged on Sykes in the interview yesterday.
Yeah, I know.
He just catches strays.
Yeah. All right, have fun.
Yo,
that was a great guest appearance.
That was great. I had no idea you were still living with this guy, and all of a sudden he appears in the room. That was comedy. Gosh, oh man. I don't even know where to go from there. We should end the show. Honestly, let's just end it.
Sykes is trying to get in the call to defend himself over here.
Is he?
He's in my chat. Like, let me in the call right now.
Al's coming in here throwing bows at Zainu and Sykes. Oh man, that is too good. Obviously other big topics for Falcons. We were thinking about like should we make this a segment? Should we make this a topic? We decided not to. Like, get over it. We get it. Don't be wrong. We should definitely call it out. We have to call it out. The fact that Falcons didn't show social media presence in day one, whatever. We don't want to make a bigger deal out of it than it already is. A lot of people are already making a big deal out of it. Obviously, it's pathetic and terrible and kind of unacceptable in a lot of ways. But mistakes happen, things happen. It's good that they responded immediately and kind of shared their point of view. If you guys didn't see, they actually responded immediately. Said, "Look, it was DreamHack this weekend. We're hiring a social media editor. If those are excuses, it is what it is. But have some grace. Give them time. They're new to Apex. All that to say, I know a lot of chatter of are they good for Apex? Are they not good for Apex? Whatever. But give it time. I think is the overall TLDR. I don't want to spend too much time there. But obviously, that was not acceptable. Not a good scene. With that said, I'm trying to think. Day 2. TSM, let's transition, talk about that. Evan, want to get your point of view. 11th place, obviously below where you want to be, expectations. What happened? What went wrong? What went well? What's the situation with your team right now?
I think the biggest issue just stems from a lack of end game knowledge and like a lack of just knowing what kills to get to win games and knowing when to kill teams. We had a bit of a team fighting issue. Like there was 2 games where we just couldn't kill a team fast enough, and I was just not knowing how to approach the team fight. I mean, our team's pretty good at TDMs. We really only lost to SSG and Falcons. Other than that, we beat pretty much everybody. And we just had a couple team fighting mistakes. And our macro, I feel like our macro was pretty good today, or not today, yesterday. Our macro was pretty dang good, and we'd get into these end game spots, but we just couldn't get any kills. Like we didn't know which teams to fight and when to like lash out and take positions for other teams and just kill people. Like we had our early. I feel like we had our early game down, but we got to like zone 3, 4, and 5, and we just don't know what we're doing. And I think we all realized that. I also feel like we weren't. We just weren't like we just didn't know how to pick up kills and when to go kill teams and when it was safe to kill teams. And a lot of people think that the issues stemmed from the fact that we don't have a solid IGL and we're like indecisive. But I think that has something to do with it. I think it has to do with the fact that none of us have the knowledge or experience to make the right play. Like if any of us were set IGL in any of those moments, we probably still wouldn't have known what to do. Like that doesn't magically make us know what to do just because we have an IGL tag on our name. Like just being the IGL doesn't like mean that you know what to do. It just means that you have a final call. But like if you make the wrong final call, your team's just dead anyways. So it wasn't a matter of like indecisiveness. It was a matter of none of us were confident enough. Like none of us knew what we were doing. Basically, we just weren't.
So how do you like break that pattern? Because there's only so much time in each pro league. There's a record level of lack of time between the event ending versus roster locks for EWC versus pro league starting now. So with only like a couple weeks, you guys really didn't have that long to trial him and to get comfortable with that. Like where do you see like the path to the top of where you guys think that you can get? Where does that start? And where does that come down to like coaching? But how does that process look to get to where you're talking about getting with such a short amount of time from now to where we're already? I'm glad for you guys and your sake that you didn't have to play back-to-back days because that does give you a whole extra week of practicing leading up to the upcoming week. So I mean, if anything, that's a great thing. And 11th place is you're right there in the middle of the pack. There's been a bunch of teams bouncing back and forth, but for you and going forward with your team, like what is that path to success?
I think it's just a matter of understanding what mistakes we've made and just, pinpointing what those mistakes are and thinking of ways to fix them. And so, trying to get better at killing teams quickly. One way to do that is just watch VODs as a team. And basically, like, put ourselves in the shoes of the person that we're watching and ask ourselves how we have taken this fight and just, talk about like where we like what positions we would play, like how we just kill a team as quickly as possible. And as far as like picking the right teams to kill and when to kill them, that's pretty hard to figure out in training, especially in scrims because scrims aren't like representative of the actual game. And we're just trying our best to basically just learn from VODs. I think that's the best way to learn right now. I mean, it's going to be hard to learn for playing ranked or TDMs or R5. We have to watch VODs and basically try our hardest to like understand why the top teams do what they do and find a way to do it better. And that's just the best way to practice right now. It's basically we're just watching VODs. Watching VODs as a team, I think, is going to help us quite a bit. That's what we've been doing. I think it's just a matter of too, like just putting in more time. Understanding maybe we didn't put in enough time, putting in extra hours every now and then, like realizing that we're on the cusp. We have to put in a bit more time to get a bit higher. But yeah, just watching VODs and really trying hard to like study and understand the decision making behind some of these teams.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing with like when it comes to like the SSG and Falcons rosters is they always seem to have at least a couple decisions of things that they can make, and it changes so fast on the fly, and it really is that one person that's taking over. And I know Jordan's kind of talked about IGLing in the past, and you've like dabbled in making calls and doing some of these, whether it's rivals or whatever it is, and placing well in those. But I think it just comes down to like hearing the confidence in the call, and then once it's made, just really trying to figure out the best way as a unit to approach that. Whether it's I used to have code words on teams of when you have to wipe something fast or if it needs to get done, like it's full sender or death ball or comms like that you've heard where it's a specific and that can help in those processes of are we going to stall this out, stay alive, play alive, and just hope another team comes in third so they in a pinch, this and that, versus dive a bunker and try and get the kills really quick so you have time to reset versus like you're stuck on the outside. Teams are then looking for presence and shots. And there's a lot to it, and I think everyone is rooting for you and your team to pull it off the split.
I respect the code names, but Death Ball is some corny shit. That's a corny ass.
Well, that was when it was Gibraltar. Gibraltar was the main, and so it was Death Ball. You'd throw the bubble in, and you would just full int with 3 Mastiffs out, and it was like end this fight immediately and hope the Gibraltar stays up so we can get the quick res off. And it was
doesn't take away from how corny it is.
What would your call be, Fallout? What would
red? Red. Keep it simple. It's a color. Red means
like that.
wow, wipe these. Back when we.
What if you're shooting red armor? Your line already sucks. So you get confused. You're cluttering the comms. Red. Who's on red? Like, what are you talking about?
Crimson. Fuck with Crimson. Badass.
I don't know. That's kind of corny.
I think it's cornier. I think it's
Death,
cornier.
Death Ball compared
Death
to
Ball.
Crimson?
Yeah.
Death Balls makes
Balls-
sense. Like
You went,
you're
you
a
went
ball
from Death
of
Balls
death. You're
corny
just
to
rolling straight into the team.
red. All right.
I liked red. I liked
Thank
red.
you. That's what we did. We had colors. Green was actually we're gonna run past them, and we're basically gonna like LOS run past them and ISO them. So green was just like green field, run past them. Red was we had to kill them right away. Death Ball almost. You like Death Ball better? You're almost some cornballs.
I like it better than red. I mean, if you came out with something like Caterpillar or something, like I don't fucking know, like just throw some random ass name that makes no sense at all, because that's catching my attention in game in the comms. Anything else that said, if I hear a Caterpillar, I know that it stands out.
Let me guess. Your com for Punch 'em Out was Supersonic Death Punch.
Falcon Punch.
Falcon Punch.
I'll bring that out.
Also corny. All right, man. Anyways, we moved down a complete rabbit hole there. Pete, what question you got for host this TSM squad? You got anything for him? I got one more.
Dude, I just want to say you got a lot of people cheering for you guys, rooting for you guys. So I think one of the things is you guys find the confidence, right, to realize you guys are here for a reason, bro. Like, you're signed to TSM for a reason. Figure out the little kinks in the armor there and just swing it, man. But quick question here. So you guys are going from Raven to a new coach. Talk to us about Talmadge a little bit.
Talmadge is definitely different from Raven. I think Talmadge is way better of a vibe coach. Like, he's way better at keeping the team vibes up. He's always positive. He keeps everyone kind of like emotionally stable. Like, if one of us is raging too hard, he'll calm us down. Raven was really good at that at the start, but I feel like towards the end he started to just get like pissed off when we were losing. But now, like at the start, Raven's like our therapist, right? Kept Hal sane, but towards the end it was like he was just getting pissed off. He's like, "Man, we're trash." Talmadge just kind of like reminds me of how Raven was at the start. Keeps everyone happy, and as far as like strategy goes, he's pretty dang helpful. What he says is right, like 90% of the time. And he's really good at clearing the air and like what we need to work on. And also good at like kind of like directing team discussions. Like, if we're talking about the game, he's always bringing up what things we need to talk about, what we need to work on. And he kind of just keeps us talking to each other, like keeps discussion flowing, which I think is really important. Having that fourth voice when your team is trying to work on something is just so helpful. And I think Talmadge is really good for that. And yeah, he's great. He's been great to have so far.
And on a skill level of coaching, right? Do you think he's similar to Raven? Because Raven, I called him the Bill Belichick of Apex coaches. Where do you think Talmadge sort of stacks on that?
I think Raven, like when we first had Raven, like the first few months we had him, he was just like God coach, like uncomparable to anybody else. I feel like towards the end he fell off a bit. I think we all fell off a little bit. I'd say Talmadge and Raven, like Raven towards the end of when we had him versus Talmadge now, I think they're pretty similar. So I'd say right now, Raven and Talmadge are somewhat similar. Yeah, I wouldn't rank one. Maybe Raven's a little bit ahead of Talmadge right now, but I do feel like Raven lost a bit of passion towards the end. And I just think that like as of now, they're not far apart, Raven and Talmadge.
Plus the vibes.
Cool.
Bro, my chat is loving the Bill Belichick reference in the sense, like, I don't know if they're actually loving it. They're saying Peep, of course, throwing a Patriots reference out. People are also saying Bill Belichick's out of the league. So,
Bill Belichick was nothing about Tom.
Throw that on there, or Bill Belichick maybe taking cameras to film other teams' practices. So, like,
oh God,
don't get me started, man.
Don't get me started.
Brad, my man Brad from Down Under, Peeps made a Patriots reference. Everyone drink.
Bill Belichick's out of the league. Tom Brady goes and wins the Super Bowl somewhere else. I mean, who was the real star player there?
We got to do a bingo card for after hours from now on. Someone in the community make a bingo card of stupid shit I say, Snipe says.
Is Peep going to reference a rap song? He's going to do an Eminem reference. We're going to get multiple Boston references, the Patriots references for sure.
I will say in my intro when I was walking out the teams in LA, I did reference the Black Eyed Peas, and I don't think a lot of people picked up on that. because I said let's get it started like the Black Eyed Peas in the 2000s. I thought it was hilarious.
I heard that.
Yeah,
That's as corny as Death Ball, man. What?
Little corny's good, man.
Little corny is good. They used to corn out back in the day.
Yeah, I like to have fun, man, and dude, I love references. I don't think a lot of people got it because the average age of the Apex watchers maybe aren't there, but I got some good feedback on it. I also got some.
A lot of older Apex fans. Last question,
wasn't born.
I want to ask. Yeah, Verhols wasn't born. That's true.
No, Koifel wasn't even born yet.
Koifel. Oh
We're going 2000s. He's like a 2003 baby or something.
Late 2000s, man.
Late 2000s.
Same thing about Verhols. Very last question. I want to put a cork in it and move on to the meta discussion. Last two questions. I'm going to ask you two for and we're going to wrap up. One, I basically want you to break down your roster and kind of the situation. One, break down Zap. You made a comment earlier. I want to dig into it a little bit. People don't realize how much he actually is a student of the game, studies macro, etc. Plus, obviously, we know he's a fragger and he's really talented or whatever. Break him down as a player. Two, help us understand a little bit more about like what's gone into the reps, Verholst, co-IGL. Now you're, what the status there, what's gone into that decision, and where are you guys at in that topic? Start with Zap.
Zap's biggest asset to us so far has just been like the pure firepower that he brings. I mean, he is just a beast when it comes to any sort of like gunfight or like winning trades. Like on like, bro, if we're ever in like a doorway, somehow he'll just like out trade someone like 150 to like 20 on a doorway. Like I don't know how he does it, but like he's just hitting like some god sprays with the Havocs and Volt sometimes through doorways, and it's just like he's always good for one to fight. Like his mechanics are insane. I think his mechanics are comparable to Koifel. I really do. I think his mechanics are like absolutely insane. Just watch him play his recoil control and tracking is just like it's just nutty. Like he's so good at fighting. He's good movement too. Like knows how to not take damage in fights. And on top of that, Zap, like little to mean reps know, like he really has a voice. He really contributes in terms of macro and play calling. Like he's not afraid to take charge sometimes. Like if he sees a good play, he'll be like, "Boys, we need to do this right now. Just go." And we'll just trust him. Like we had that happen during skins a few times. Or he'll just like see a call and just say like, "Hey boys, we need to kill this," and or it's like, "All right, let's do it," and it usually works out. He's not afraid to take over sometimes, and he studies macro. He watches VODs too, so he's really trying to help out in that regard because he knows that we don't IGL, so he's trying to pitch in as much as possible. He's had some great ideas and great calls. Like he really is contributing a lot. He's been a great pickup so far. And what's the second question? Was about me and Reps.
Co-IGLing status. What went into kind of Reps versus you and IGLing, and what's the status there?
Yeah, so me and Reps were conflicted on like who's going to IGL because we didn't really know who was going to work better. So we kind of just tried co-IGLing. Like seeing like who could make better calls, like maybe who would have a better dynamic. And so far, it seems like neither of us know what we're doing. So like I don't think either one of us stands out as a definite IGL right now. We gave Jordan like the final call on what to do. But as far as like actually making all the calls, like we're helping Jordan out a lot. We're all trying to help each other figure out the right play most of the time, and that just stems from none of us knowing what we're doing really as far as like shot calling and making the right plays. We're just trying to figure it out, and Jordan's like the final kind of like makes the final calls right now. He would be the IGL, but I'd say me and Zap are both co-IGLing, and we're really trying to help him because none of us are confident enough to make the correct call every time. None of us are a zero right now. Like we don't know what we're doing just yet. I'll admit it. Like we have a lot of work to do, and we're trying to figure it out.
Are you going to spend a lot of time? Because we talked about this a little bit with Realm. And do you think playing Realm to get reps as an IGL and like fully taking over instead of having like you and like each of you could do this and really try and take over to get into that mindset of how to IGL to then bring each of you like together onto the roster to then have maybe better ideas of those calls to get those repetitions if that's how it's going to be of kind of a if Zap makes a call and he's really aggressive with it, you trust it. If Jordan makes a call, he's aggressive with it, you trust it. Same for you. I think Realm is a great spot for people who are trying to learn how to IGL to practice those situational plays where you might not have two legends in your ear feeding information. It's kind of all on you to make the calls to get more repetitions in.
I mean, I think Realm is great practice. Like you kind of learn like you just get to see it's I'd say it's better practice than VOD reviewing just because you get to see like firsthand how zones play out, and you're just getting more reps in. Like there's no replacement for actually playing a game out, like a competitive game out. Then VOD review can only do so much, and Realm is just like the real thing. And I think Realm definitely helps out with IGLing. It doesn't play out the same as Pro League does, obviously, but you can kind of still get an idea of like the right timing to push teams and how to clear edges of the zone, and like how to do 2-1 splits where you have a guy anchoring and two guys lashing out and trying to kill a team. Realm's definitely good practice, and we talked about that actually after Pro League. We were like, okay, we cannot miss a single hour of Realm. Like, we need to be playing every game of Realm, all three of us, because you don't want to just have one player that knows like all the calls. You kind of want to have like all three players like knowing what to do in games. Like, you want all three players to be aware of like how to win a game and where teams are, because it just makes everyone on the same page and no one gets like caught out doing stupid stuff. Like, it's easy to like have two players that really understand the game and one player doesn't understand the game, and he just like maybe he just like gets the wrong idea when someone makes a call. And we all three want to be on the same page, and playing Realm definitely should help a lot because we're getting in more reps.
Love it. Let's move on from that chat. Really good. Thank you for that. It's like a sub-segment in itself, and that was one thing I think we were looking forward to having on the show, was to really dig into that topic. And obviously, like, people hit the nail on the head. You have so many people rooting for you right now. It's a really fun story to follow, and I appreciate the humility and recognizing where you're at and sharing where you're at in the journey. It's going to be a work in progress, and I think that's part of why fans are going to be engaged and excited to kind of develop alongside you or watch you guys develop. So everyone's rooting for you. And thank you for the perspective. Let's shift gears a bit. I mentioned at the top of the show, we're going to have a meta discussion. The can't see shit meta, as our producer has deemed it, really defines it pretty well. You got Catalyst back in the mix, Bing Smokes, of course, and the like. I'm going to open up to whoever wants to kind of kick off their thoughts on current meta. If you like it, you don't like it, what the status is, where you see it shifting to. Open discussion.
I mean, I'm just tired. They took Digis out, which made Bangalore, I think, even better than it was before, because you couldn't just get melted. Everyone had a Digi. Like, you could really abuse Bloodhound. Now we're seeing so much teamwork with Bangalore's just smoking directly on top of their Bloodhounds, so they can just sit in the smoke and beam people in open spaces. So the meta shifted in that sense of, like, I guess how to use characters a little different. At this point, I'm hoping that some tech gets, like, something new gets launched, like, of an area just kind of makes everything go away in like a small radius of area, whether it's smoke or traps or something. You just throw something, like, it's just too much clutter. We're seeing more ultic cells used than I've ever seen in any stage of Apex. Like, I think it might have been even Evan's team. They had 6 ultic cells across the 3 of them, and they just burned all their ults, and they're passing these around like candy, and 2 people got their ults back immediately. And then it's, do we need Catwall for this? Do we need Bloodhound ult? What's more important? Bangalore ult for space? And like, it's just, yes, mechanics are great, but we're getting to the point now where it's so much abilities and so much clutter that it's like, it's hard for viewers to pay attention. It's hard for even like players when certain fights or situations are going down, you're just dropping in people's faces and spraying and praying. And it's not ideal from an outsider's perspective. So I don't think it's as ideal for players either. But I mean, you just, as a player, you're forced to just adapt with what's in front of you. But I mean, I think it's kind of boring. Like, from an outside perspective, it's boring seeing every single fight be pretty much exactly the same.
Yeah, I would love to see like more characters get buffed to the point where like you could run this comp, or you could run this comp, or you can run this comp, and they're all like super viable. They're all super good. I think we were sort of like going into an area in the time of Apex where more metas were viable. More weapons were viable, and I like that a lot, and I think the viewers like that a lot. But no, I fully agree, man. Like, I'm a Bangalore main. I've been a Bangalore main since the start of the game, really. But the smokes, the caustic gas. If you're in smoke and you run through a catalyst wall, you might as well close your eyes, bro. You can't see shit.
Yeah.
So something needs to change a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like as a player, I don't mind the meta at all. I'm completely fine with it. Don't care if it changes. I'm not really, like, as a player, I'm not thinking about the meta. I'm kind of just thinking of like the best way I can exploit it, get the most out of it. But I feel like from a viewer's perspective, like, I do feel like Bangalore is bad for the meta because it's just hard to tell what's going on with all the smoke. Especially like Bang ults too. Like, you don't know if like Bang ults are actually affecting any teams. Like, from a viewer's perspective, like you just don't know like what the Bang ult's going to do. Like, I feel like Valk and Horizon are both really, really good for like viewers, because the Valk ult's the most cinematic ability in any game ever. I mean, watching a team full send up and then just coin flip and dies, like, That's so fun to watch.
They either
Like,
get
Horizon 2,
Godspot or just die.
Yeah, like Valk was so fun to watch, dude. I feel like they need to bring Valk back. Like Valk Meta was so fun to watch. Like just getting to spectate and to see teams dive bomb is so cool. And I think Horizon was good like for viewership too. Like no visual clutter with Horizon. I think it was kind of cool for people to watch fights and see like the Horizon queue up and take a side angle. It was really like clear and everyone could see what's going on. There's no clutter. But yeah, like Caustic and Bangalore, I think are just bad for like I think they're fine for like competitive meta, but for viewership it's bad because no one can see what's going on. And it's just like a viewer just can't tell who's winning the fight. Like they don't know like who's about to like flank or whatnot because they can't tell like what the player's seeing. And yeah, I just think there's too much visual clutter, and like the less visual clutter, the better it's for viewership.
Do you think that the Havoc meta is a problem? I mean, it's every single player has a Havoc. Like it's. I don't like when a game is dominated by one weapon. I think it's nice to have variety. Like I mean, we saw every single person running a 30-30 for a bin. It does always kind of come down to there being one weapon that usually stands out. But we're at a point now where it's like this weapon is absolutely has to be one of the two weapons that you're running. Guaranteed. Yeah. The kill feed the entire game is Havoc, and I don't think that really bodes well for expanding the game too much either, because it kind of makes it seem like it's all this bubble of just use meta, just use things that are only meta, when honestly the balance in this game has been, I think, pretty strong all around. We've seen Flatline be a great gun, Nemesis, we have Hemlock and all these guns, but I don't think one gun should control the meta as much as it really is. And with like a 36 round clip with a purple mag, 24 without it, which is better than a Volt blue mag, is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I full agree, dude. I think the Havoc it's a mini LMG, right? That can reload quicker. The DPS is awesome. You got a turbocharger, which turns that thing into Thanos, right? And then, barely any bullet drop. Bullet velocity is amazing. Something definitely needs to happen, man. And please, if any of the devs are watching this, buff the R301 again.
Yes,
please.
I agree with that.
It is time for the R301 to come back. I agree. I definitely think the Havoc is the Havoc's definitely busted, but I feel like there's always gonna be one gun that's like broken, and I think it's definitely time for a change. Like it's just not fun to have one gun be meta for this long, and the Havoc really is like above and beyond the rest of the guns. We've had like metas with quite a bit of variety, and this is not one of them. The Havoc is just by far and away the best secondary gun right now. Secondary and primary. When you can use it for long range, close range. Like it's just good for every situation. It's so good right now, and like you can run it with no attachments. Like the thing's just busting. Like it's also like takes a skill out of aiming a bit, I'd say, because there's so much aim on the mag, you can guarantee a one clip every time. Like there's just like if someone catches you out in the open with the Havoc, you're dead every time. There's no skill for them to one clip you. You're just gunned. You're dead. Like you're not getting out.
There's no counterplay potential either.
There's no counterplay. Like, it's a meta of like basically trying to catch someone in the open and just like give yourself 1 second, or like trying to keep them like have your crossfire for like 1 or 2 seconds because you're going to kill them no matter what. It's not a matter of like trying to like play around cover because you might miss a few shots, you might not clip them. It's a matter of like, can I get the first shot and then keep this guy out in the open after getting the first shot, and like then he'll die. And it's just a one clip meta. It really is.
Emic, our producer, posted in chat, Havoc the best SMG in the game.
That's where the problem is.
And AR, man.
It's not even used as an AR really, because you have the Hemlock, which is just so dominant to get picks across the map without having to spray. And then as soon as someone pulls up, you just whip the Havoc out, and you're just spraying and praying. And
mid and close range.
I think the mechanics were in the past, everyone used to ADS, and now it's a bunch of ADS, non-ADS spam to control hipfire. Makes it that much stronger because you don't lose out on the movement that you usually do when you're hard ADSing an AR. So I think that putting like a Havoc on a Bloodhound is just insane for that alone.
And then on the topic of assault rifles, burst is kind of burst meta, right? Nemesis, Hemlock, would you guys say is a level above Flatline, which is a level above 301? You guys agree with that? What are your thoughts on the AR meta?
Yeah,
I'll agree with that.
Just that list you just said is it's Hemlock, then Nemesis, and then everything else you just mentioned. Like Flatline is still good. I still get a bunch of kills. You can use a Flatline honestly as an SMG as well. It's a very strong weapon. I think the SMGs are just for the first time really weak right now. It's almost always been an SMG dominant meta. Like you rarely see anyone running the car, or the Prowler's not used. The R9 is never picked up. People pick up Alternator over the R9. And so we're seeing something different, and it didn't go from SMGs to shotgun meta. It went from SMGs to now the Havoc is like the weapon. And honestly, if they nerfed the Havoc super hard, it would be the Flatline. I think
Yeah,
people would be running flatline hemlock, and that would be the weapon combo because you look at the clips and what you can put. You get a 30 mag flatline or a 36 mag havoc when you have it fully decked, and people are getting looted up. So the more ammo count, the better because you're looking to end fights quickly. So high damage output with high ammo capacity because you can't miss shots with any SMGs right now with how they are if you want to get the picks. So
I think the hip fire on the flatline is awesome too.
It's very
You
good.
can just let that thing rip, and it's you're hitting shots.
I think you agree with that. If Havoc gets nerfed, Flatline gets picked up over SMGs and shotguns, unless you're reject Winity and reusing a PK.
Definitely. The Flatline definitely is replacing the Havoc. I think the Flatline and the Prowler, I think. The Flatline, Prowler, and Volt would be like the 3 picks that would replace it, but I think the Flatline would kind of like preside over those other 2 for sure. It's literally just the same thing as a Havoc. It's a gun that you can't miss a 1 clip with it because the mag size is so big. Just a guaranteed clip every time, and that's just like too invaluable to have. If you have a Prowler, you might miss a few bullets and not kill someone. If you have a Volt especially, like it's hard to 1 clip with that gun, and the Flatline is not hard to 1 clip with at all. The gun just like insane.
No room for the shotgun. For shotgun as a meta for controller players. Only MK.
No, I think shotguns. No, not for controller players. I don't think.
It's just, like
if you're not, you good.
Yeah, it's just you miss 1 or 2 shots, you just threw the whole fight for your team. Like as a controller player, your margin for error with shotguns versus like a spray weapon like a Flatline or a Volt or Havoc is so high in comparison that it's just never worth that risk. Which is why like I don't use the Prowler as much anymore because of that alone as well. Like if you miss 2 bursts to start the fight, like you could have just thrown the entire fight. Whereas like you have a Volt or you have a Havoc or anything like that, you're pretty much guaranteed to at least lock onto the person instead of those like windows of having to pull the trigger that you could miss.
I think with shotguns too, range is like a super important thing. You know, once they're out of like that 7-meter range, bro, you're shooting rubber bullets. You know, so why would I rock a shotgun when I could literally rock a Havoc, rock a Volt, anything? And range isn't a problem.
I also feel like if Bangalore ever falls out of meta, shotguns are like just never ever going to get used. I think Bang helps shotguns a lot with M&K players because they can just like use their movement and combine it with the shotguns. But like if Bang's gone and there's no like smoke that removes aim assist, I think shotguns are going to be gone for a while unless they get buffed.
Gibraltar meta is like all I could think of to really bust it back in, where you're just rolling into buildings with bubble and trying to just like let it rip.
Death ball.
Newcastle.
Yeah, you got it.
Last topic on meta. Back to the legend topic because we jumped to the weapon meta discussion pretty quick. Evan, you said something. I want to actually dial back into it. You said you really focused pretty much on the viewer experience. And you said as a player, I don't really focus on the meta, and you really share many takes of meta as a player because you just think about how to exploit it. But with that said, if you actually did think about the current meta and if reflected on it, are you enjoying it? I mean, are you enjoying the current meta as a player from strictly a player perspective, or would you like to see it shake up a bit? Alter as well, yeah. I don't know about Alter. Good point. I
would say I am enjoying it, but I would like it to be shaken up. I think the bank smoke is it's getting old. Every single fight is just the MK player just smoking in the middle of the floor, trying to like bait for their 2 controller teammates to shoot in the back, and that's just how every single dynamic is. I think if they shook it up, maybe we see Falcons and SSG struggle a bit more. Maybe everyone's kind of used to finding smoke now, and I think if they got rid of the smoke, it might change the dynamic quite a bit, and it'll just make it fresh for everybody.
I'm still on board with what I said, man. Put something in the game that basically clears out a range of abilities or things that are on the ground. I don't know. Like that could just declutter certain areas. Maybe that could be something that could be thrown instead of just adding more or buffing. Maybe like add something that can like decrease the amount of shit that's all over the place on the map. I don't know. Just an idea. I don't know if that could actually be good or not, or how that would be used, but.
Yo, hear me out. I might absolutely be smoking rocks, but what if they had an area on the map where you could not use abilities?
Like the quarantine zone and Broken Moon type of thing?
Like Fight Night, but with only weapons? Just no
only
abilities.
Weapons. No abilities at all. Like not even passives. And, you get in
tech
there.
that enabled that.
What do you mean?
That would be interesting what Steffi said in the chat. No, when Final Zone kicks in, abilities are turned off. It's just like positioning. That would be. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't like that that much.
I just want a little area in the map You know, maybe they have an end zone there once in a while. No abilities whatsoever, bro. It's just straight gunny. Like, that'd be nuts.
That could be
Maybe,
cool.
like,
It's a cool
maybe-
idea.
And if zone ends there, like you finally get that. You know,
maybe just tacticals, no ults, like final zone or something like that. You still have to have abilities. You can't not have abilities.
I mean, they could do like a hot, like how they have hot zone instead of hot zone. They just have like a no ability zone and just random POI every game.
Maybe.
Snipe's not liking it, but I'm loving it, man. I'm loving it.
I'd be down for something. I don't know.
Fortnite did that, right? Like Tilted Towers was like no build for a little bit. Like you couldn't build in Fortnite and Tilted or something.
No idea.
Like that.
I got no idea.
You guys
bro.
are like, oh, fuck. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. All right, shifting gears from kind of meta to the segment we called Apex Competitive Wish List. And really just a topic of shit going on in competitive right now. The first is zone variance. We have to talk about zone variance right now, or lack thereof. It's been so many today. 3 north zones on World's Edge, 2 skyhook zones, SSG landing sky east. Surprise, surprise, dominated 50 points in the first 3 games, and then got 5 points in games 5 and 6, or 4 and 5, I believe. Girls, starting with you, are you livid? Or are you okay with it? Like, what are your thoughts on what's going on with kind of the zone variance or lack thereof? We have some graphics that I think will also help.
Yeah, I mean, I hate how zones keep repeating, but it's also like, you know, I really do feel like it is like truly random. And I don't know like if we're just getting unlucky or what's going on. You know, like I don't know what the solution is. Like what would you even say to them? Like what like hand pick the zones and make it so they're evenly spread. But then it's like, you know, is it getting rigged at that point? I don't know. It's hard to say like what the solution is. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know what's going on with the zone algorithm. It's hard to say unless I actually saw what the zone how it worked exactly. Yeah, it is annoying to see the same zones pop up. You know that happens literally every single pro league weekend, pretty much. Like there's always weekends where we have 2 of the same zone repeating. They're like one. It's always like one area of the map that just has like a bunch of zones on it. And that just happens every time. And I feel like it's just luck of the draw. Like it's just bound to happen that one area of the map will have like a couple extra zones on it, and then like, you know, one month to month that'll change, and that just always happens. I don't really know if there's anything that can be done about it other than like the devs literally handpicking zones, which I think would be ridiculous.
Do we know what the formula is for where zones are going? Is that public knowledge or no?
Nope.
No.
Not that I know.
What if like, you know, you have a zone in Skyhook and now you only have like a 10% chance, like as a fix to this, you only have a 10% chance of that zone going back to it or something like that. Like, would that help, or you think?
There's been talks of like they had a system where they could pick where the zones are going to go, and there's been talks of like putting quadrants, like 4 quadrants, and then if the zone ends in one area, like everything starts at a 25% rate, and then if the zone ends in one area, that rate decreases to like, let's say like that turns to 15, and then the rest are like 25 or 30 whatever. And I think that's a method. It just, I don't know, man. I would love to have some like public information on how the zones are actually picked, because it feels like with each patch, or more so recently than not, it's just been specifically World's Edge North, Storm Point South, and it's been like that for what feels like multiple seasons at this point. And it seems like it's like too much of a coincidence for it not to seem like there's something on the back end that is pulling them to those directions, whether it's like maybe terrain is causing issues of zones pulling into some areas or whatever it is. But I think the questions are fair just based off of this last land specifically. Multiple trials, back trial zones, skyhook zones, and then, you know, first week of Pro League. And we're about to see them with the graphics that we're about to pull up of really how insane it truly is.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and pull this up, courtesy of our producer BMIC for teeing this up, and more so, massive thank you to Hugo from Apex Legends Status. If anyone watching the stream right now, if you do not know who Hugo is, or ApexLegendsStatus.com, if you're not using that website, if you're not sending Hugo love, you're failing. So much that he does for the entire community. A massive thank you to Hugo, and make sure to check out ApexLegendsStatus.com. So check this out. This is tech that he built, and this is insane. So World's Edge. These are all in every single region, all of the end zones that we saw for day 1 and day 2 of the Pro League. And there are, you know, far south 4 zones, overall south 4 plus maybe 9, maybe 9 or 10 zones. An absolutely insane stat. And of course, today we saw that with Skyhook and a lot of the finishes. These World's Edge North zones have been wild. I know our producer BMIC has some thoughts.
Yeah, so right here we're looking at just day 1 and day 2 from Split 2 Pro League, but if we go back and look at LAN as well, you can see it's just as congested, and we saw that a lot on day 3 of LAN in that northwest corner, where it's just super inundated with these zones, and so many of them pulling like outside trials. I think it was 2 or 3 in a row if memory serves. Had a few White Claws in me in LAN, but yeah, it was pretty bad seeing just the repetitive zones in the top corner, and the pros have been complaining about it and just the lack of variance. It's starting to get really fatiguing as a viewer for myself, and I can only imagine Eric and Verhol, if you can talk about as a player, is just seeing the same zones over and over again. Like if you're landing thermal or stacks, you're screwed.
We had players booing, or we had fans booing at LAN after the 3rd Skyhook trial zone got shown again, and everyone is like, "This is ridiculous." You know when the fans are booing about a zone, which is something that a lot of people might not even understand completely, it's bad. Like it's just not a fun experience. Because the same teams usually do well, the same teams usually end up in the end, and it kind of feels like, I mean, it is a BR, but it just feels like teams are actually getting screwed. And I mean,
it's just
this is on top of each other. It's crazy. Like it's actually crazy. About the 40% bottom half of the map has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total zones throughout playoffs, pro league. That's something's not right there, and regardless of the algorithm, like that's you could flip a coin a bunch of times, it's not going to look like that, I wouldn't think.
It's really interesting to note too, just real quick, is they at the midseason update last season, they said that they were removing the invalid zone endings that they had. People might remember this on Twitter about like 8 months or so ago, where that big like quote unquote data mined map pulled up where the zones couldn't end. They pushed out an update that they weren't using that anymore, to hopefully add more variance to the zones. And it seems, as a viewer solely, that it's kind of went the opposite direction here. So I'm curious.
Okay, then I have a question.
Not a single thermal station zone.
I was just about to say.
Remember how many thermal zones we used to get?
I don't want to cut you out of this, but if that was what they said, how much do we think the lava has an impact on zone endings?
Oh, that's a
great point.
If the lava is causing where, like, if the zone could ever end near the lava or in the lava, 0 thermal zones where there's the most lava. Siphon has almost zero zones around that entire area. Dome has almost nothing in that entire region where there used to be a lot of back zone endings.
And Climatizer on the right side.
Fissure
look at Climatizer. That whole right side of Climatizer is there used to be endings there all the time. I'm surprised that there aren't any there, honestly. But like, there's nothing really around those. Every area there's a large portion of lava. There is 0 zone endings.
Right, you might have just cracked the code.
You cracked the algorithm.
You might have solved the biggest bug ever.
Yeah, we're gonna need you to crack it when we go over to Storm Point too.
I mean, maybe, but like it could just come with unplayable areas, whether it's like out of bounds spots or something, or like these mountains or whatever. But I mean, this looks very apparent. There's one thing that stands out to me, and it's that on this entire
clean up the lava in World's Edge. Just remove it from World's Edge for competitive, and this is problem solved. And that is interesting. Let's pull up Storm Point. Let's see if we can. Detective Snipe down here can deduce anything. Walk us through some key takeaways you have in your head.
Yeah, so this is just day 1, day 2, and if we go back and even include, like, earlier stuff, like we can include LAN, we saw a lot of south zones there. There was like a day where we got a bunch up at Down Beast for some reason, but it's just really often, I think, throughout last regular season split, we saw a lot of pros talking about how they only liked pulling to the new POI, so we saw, like, a lot of Cedo Station, we saw a lot of Pylon throughout last split. But for some reason, it just seems that we're able to deduce a pattern where there shouldn't be one possible. So I'm curious to see what changes are going to be made moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's kind of lame, especially for the players, right? But not only the players, the viewers, right? Like, the devs work their asses off on the map, and it feels super repetitive when you get, similar zones over and over again. When we have a whole map, so would love to see something like that changed.
And actually, I'd love to go into like brainstorming solutioning here. Verls, you said something and you're like, well, actually no, because then it would be rigged. It wouldn't be rigged anymore. And I'm going to go back to that. So the point you brought up was, should they pre-draw the zones? And I'm going to make the worst analogy ever. Bear with me. I cast the Big Buck Hunter World Championship every year, which I know has nothing to do with Apex Legends. You're in a bar drinking and shooting deer on an arcade machine. But what they do for the Big Buck Hunter World Championship is because players got so freaking good at Big Buck, they knew all the deer paths, right? So they would pre-shoot, and for the championships now, they actually completely change the routes and they draw and design the routes of the deer on Big Buck Hunter before every single championship. But they don't tell anybody, and it becomes a game of skill. You have to obviously react as opposed to memorize. With POI drafts now being randomized and the draft existing, I wonder if there's a world where they do. And is there a downside to the devs to respawn? You take some of the best designers, and they will predetermine for every single round of an ALGS LAN where the zones are going to go, shake it up, and they decide on their end what's going to obviously do it from an objective point of view. You have to have some really good designers. Obviously, is that a terrible thing?
Yeah, one thing to note too, last week we had Design on the show and we were talking about the POI drafts and like how he would like to just be on the north side of Storm Point because he hates fighting uphill on those rotates that pull north. But if you're getting zones that are pulling this far south this often, I almost don't even want to go like Zeus, Wall, Ferrari, or any of those POIs, and I'd almost be looking to like get a launch site and just be closer to the south side of the map.
100% what I was talking about with the draft system. I'm taking, regardless if it's supposed to be RNG or not, I'm looking at these and thinking, regardless if it is, I'm taking my chances, and I'm going to continue with the hot hands that are north zones on World's Edge and south zones on this. I mean, Pylon or anything on that south side on this looks good. And if you're 20th pick, I'm picking something on that side of the map that's been hot. Like, and I think that's going to come into play, and it absolutely should. Because I mean, even looking at this, like the zones from the split 1 playoffs to split 2, it's very, very similar hot endings in that more south side of the map.
I will say Storm Point's a little more even than World's Edge, right? But if for whatever map, if you're picking north in World's Edge, you're picking south on Storm Point, you're actually increasing your chances to win by a certain percentage every single time, just based on RNG on zone location. So,
Rolls, any final thoughts here?
I still feel like the handpicked POIs or like handpicked zones. I just think it'd be so bad because like no matter how well they pick the zones, like it could just benefit certain teams, and they might not realize that like they would have to have like a couple pros like behind the scenes like literally thinking about how every single POI would approach.
I don't like it either.
Zone.
You're worried about information leaks too, and like it's just like imagine somehow someone got information on where zones could be going. Like it just makes it so much more room for like user error than if they could figure it out on their end. And they should be the ones that shouldn't be up to someone picking zones or anything. That should be on them getting the best tech on their end to make it as balanced as possible.
Rock solid of an algorithm as possible. Yeah, it makes sense. Yep. Interesting stuff here. The data is fascinating. Again, thank you to Apex Legends Stats and Hugo. Just had to give him a shout out for all the work that you do for the community. It is insane. This is just zone data, stats, information, lots of greatness on ApexLegendsStatus.com. And an interesting discussion for sure. Speaking of the draft system, 2 days into Pro League now, 2-3 weeks into the draft system being introduced. We talked about it last week, and all 3 guests unanimously agreed it's good for the scene. Snipe, I know what your take is. People, Verholst, you guys like in the draft system, or do you think it should be altered like it as is? Do you think it should be altered, or do you think it should be removed? We'll start with you.
Dude, I like it. So I'm a viewer. I'm not a pro player. That's the bingo
card. I'm not a pro player. It's the third time.
Is it?
Sorry.
Oh,
no, maybe second time.
All right. But no, I think it really shows who the best teams really are, right? Like, how are you able to be flexible from multiple different angles? It's not the same, like, all right, I'm TSM, I'm dropping Siphon, I'm looting this is my exact loot pattern. Oh, zone's pulling north, this is where we're going to rotate. Zone's pulling south, this is how we're going to rotate. I do miss the contest a little bit, right? But not really. I like this a hell of a lot more. For stuff that I would change, I'm not too sure. Verholst, you probably have some ideas because you're playing and you're feeling it.
I mean, I love the draft system. I was like super happy with it when they first announced it. I thought it was a great idea.
Yeah.
I feel like I was one of the people that tweeted that I liked it.
I
was surprised everyone didn't like it.
Dude, same.
Really surprised.
I saw you. I was like, thank you, Evan, for like actually voicing you like this. Made me happy.
So you like it perfectly as is, or did you like any level of alterations?
I mean, I haven't had any thoughts cross my mind on what they could do to change it.
Balancing loot, of course,
I think
POIs.
they could maybe change a couple of the POIs, or just like, I feel like, I think any change they make would just come down to POI balance, and that'd be the biggest thing. And that's like kind of almost like a separate topic, is like nothing to do with the draft. It's just a matter of, some POIs are just really, really good and some are bad, and like that's also like, maybe that's intentional. Like they maybe they don't want every POI to be equally as good, and they want some POIs to be bad, because like I do feel like there's one POI that's like is way too good, and that's just Sky West Trials. I think that POI should now exist. That POI is busted beyond belief. I mean, like you get a zone on top of it, you automatically have the best position in the zone. You go top trials, you're sitting there, you have double gold helmet every game, you have the most loot of any POI on that map. Like that POI should not exist. I think it's a little bit too broken. I know they want to have good POIs and bad POIs, but that POI is just a bit too broken right now, I think. I think other than that, like there's no other POI that's like really broken. I think it's just Trials is the only POI that I would fix.
So, yeah, I got a question for you. I was landing SkyWest Trials for ranked. You get an automatic gold res on your Lifeline, on your Newcastle, whatever you're playing. It wins fights. Could you see just Trials and those back houses and those bins being a spawn for the POI draft?
Honestly, probably, yeah. They would have.
It should be. I think it should be.
It
would be shit to just get that, but yes.
I think a better change would be like them just like getting rid of that whole mountain area and just getting rid of Trials. That's a good band-aid fix. I think that would balance it out. Because then you might have a team go back Trials, they get the gold helmet, but then they don't get console and they don't get like much loot other than the gold items. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think that'd be a good band-aid fix, and it'd be easy for them to implement that for sure. If they want to do like a hot fix.
Yep, gold reses. I mean, they win fights sometimes. They pull you out of the darkest pits. But not only that, you farm Evo, right? You're automatically basically on blue. You usually have a vault key flying around in those little bots. You got the vault right there in Skyhook. If you're able to get over there. But yeah, no, SkyWest and Trials, I feel like is insane, man. Like DZ knew the meta. Same thing with Mills. I don't think people truly understand how good Mills is and how quick it is to loot and get out of there.
Especially was when you got guaranteed colored shields.
Purple.
Evo changes.
Yeah. And with SkyWest Trials, like people saying, you're guaranteed 2 loot ticks or loot bots that go around. And one of those probably has a vault key, and there's a vault right there leading out of SkyWest into the upper area. So you're running Lifeline or something like that from SkyWest Trials, you're guaranteed 1, maybe 2 reds from like just level ups alone. Not to mention, like you're probably able to get packages on the way in. There's a lot, but I actually have a different take, and I'm curious to hear you on this, John, because you're more of like you've been around, and just from like a user experience. The draft system opens up more talk just around Apex in general, and it gives people something else to watch and like look forward to leading up to the pro leagues, instead of it just being, oh, everyone's playing, everyone knows everyone's POIs. Like it's just another focal talking point, and kind of brings a little more excitement to the casual base. And like as a viewer, and as even a pro player, that's another skill to hone, like I've talked about multiple different times here. But for you, John, like as a viewer, do you think that that's something that people can rally and get hype behind as part of the process? And whether it's I think there's not enough time for them to do this after every game. I think the 3 games is good, but yeah, just kind of curious, like from your outside perspective as not a pro player, where do you see it?
Yeah, I think as a viewer, but then more so my take is as a caster, I care so much about the watchability of the game, the health of the esport from an entertainment perspective. And are we able to kind of build stories and, superstars out of our players, et cetera. And I think, yes, absolutely, for the competitive audience and fan base, it does. Like people on Reddit, people on Twitter that are active. My dog wants to get in the mix here. But I feel like for the casual audience that just watches ALGS Pro Leagues on Sundays, like they're not watching that stuff. They're not seeing a lot of that necessarily. So I don't know how much of an impact but I think it definitely has a net impact. The one thing I actually think on the flip side of that spectrum, I was nervous about, and I still am. I think the only alteration I'd make, obviously balancing POIs is the number one thing, but creating some level of contest system, like allowing contests to still happen. That was entertaining as all hell for fans. Like you watch streams, the battle of TSM trying to claim a POI, the TSM versus E8 when Designful's on the team, madness, how much fun that was to watch. And then come game day, who's going to perform? That was a really exciting storyline that was really healthy, I think, for everything I mentioned, storylines and the growth of the game and the excitement of the esport. So I think net, yes, there's definitely benefits and it helps create that level of discussion, which is great. But we also lost something big with testing no longer being a massive thing. So I'd love to see some level of contesting coming back, maybe like the 18th through 20th pick can choose if they want to pick a spot or if they want to contest. I mean, obviously that would be some level in some way to balance it overall. On that note too, I want to also speak to make sure everyone's aware from an education perspective, because I've seen a lot of unfamiliarity online with how this works. Is it fair? How come certain teams get better seeds and better POIs? So a lot of fans don't know. They haven't read the rules. Here's how it works. So teams in Pro League are seeded randomly in assigned draft positions for each of their match days for Pro League. So it's random seeding given a draft position. So a team has 2 picks on any day that add up to 41. So for example, the number 1 pick will also pick number 40, like a snake draft. You'll get the best pick on World's Edge or Storm Point. You get to pick between the two, and you'll get the worst pick on the other map. So 1 plus 40 equals 41. So the next day they may have 14 and 27. Pick 14, pick 27, 14 plus 27, also 41. So any day that adds up to 41. So across all match days, teams should have the opportunity to have good picks. They'll also have bad picks. And mathematically, it's actually a really sound and brilliant idea. Shout out to ALGS Commissioner John Nelson and Vitabris and everyone else in the ALGS team for coming up with this, because it's brilliant. But the problem is all POIs aren't created equal and the maps are not created equal. So that creates a bit of a roller coaster and some weighting that doesn't make a ton of sense. As it relates to regional finals and LANs, this is really important to note. What's getting replaced is the seed and points advantage that teams would have going into grand finals. If you got first place in the winners bracket final, you would have 10 points before match point, get to 50. That's done. And now the team that gets first in the winners bracket final will have the first pick in the championship final. So that basically replaces the advantage you would get. And then even for like group stages too, based on your group stage performance, that is your seeding pick for the bracket, the playoffs, playoff bracket, essentially, winners bracket final, winners bracket round 1, etc. So that's how it works. A lot of people weren't necessarily familiar with how that's going to work on LAN. I want to make sure to take some time to explain that overall. Sounds like across the board here, everyone likes the changes, like to keep it as is, maybe a couple different alterations. But that's the state of POIs and draft. We'd love to hear your thoughts in chat and your thoughts in the YouTube comments and for those that are watching on YouTube and Spotify. So with that said, let's transition conversations a bit. I want to talk about just like state of the game, the health of the game. I always talk about this top of the funnel, right? Like, are there a lot of new players coming into the game that are then falling in love with the game and wanting to play ranked and then becoming fans of ALGS? Is there that player journey right now? I think a lot of people have seen like EA's earning reports and in general, the ALGS numbers on Steam charts, their Apex numbers have been down. And why is that? So like, starting with you, Evan, your thoughts on the state of the game, the state of ranked. Is it stale? Would you like to see something shaken up? Any ideas you have and any thoughts on kind of the state of ranked and state of the player experience today?
I just want to ask, like, has the player count been down? I haven't seen the numbers recently. Has it been has Steam and everything been down over the past few months? It's all been steady downtrend.
Yep.
Unfortunate. I haven't checked, but yeah, it's sad to see. I think man, it's hard to say like what they could do to like fix the player count. It's really hard. I feel like maybe the state of ranked right now. I feel like the ranked meta is pretty stale with Revenant and Pathfinder and Loba being meta. I think the ranked meta right now is really, really dominated by a few characters, and there's no variety. I mean, we have like 25 characters in the game, but Revenant, Pathfinder, and Loba, and I guess not Loba, but Revenant, Pathfinder, Lifeline, Revenant, Pathfinder, Loba are like super, super hot picks in ranked right now, and they're really, really annoying to fight against if you're on anything else. Like, they're all 3 movement characters. I mean, Revenant has this overshield that literally gives them extra HP, and that's just like, it's really just not a fun ability to play against at all. Like, just losing the fight because someone just has an ability that gives them extra shield is just ridiculous. There's no counterplay. It's just annoying to fight against that meta. I feel like a better ranked meta would help, and they'd have to just, I think they need to nerf Revenant, and it'd be hard to like fix the ranked meta, because if they nerf Revenant, maybe it's just like Pathfinder, Loba, like Wraith or something, and everyone's playing the same thing again. I would love to see some variety in the ranked meta. But other than that, like, as far as like just increasing the player count, I mean, they just have to, all they can do really is just try and pump out more content. I feel like just try and about new creative game modes. Like do something like add like four-man squad or something, or add like a low gravity game mode. I don't know.
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that though. Like I see your point. I think it's a valid point, but I'm actually going to disagree with you from the perspective of like that's what they've been doing for the last 8 months, right? Like breakout, TDM, final strike, first strike. Like they're adding some new game modes, they're adding some new characters. I think there needs to be a huge shakeout. It's hard to get back to the peak that Apex was once at. And we need something that's going to bring in like masses of casual players that again go on that player journey, go down the funnel, get into ranked, get into competitive, then become Apex ALGS fans, etc. And without something like instrumental, something massive, new game mode's not going to do that. A new game mode's not going to get the millions of casual Call of Duty dads or players that buy the game for campaign every year and play here and there in multiplayer start playing Apex. Like whether it's a marketing campaign or Respawn has shipped great single player campaigns in the past. Titanfall 2 came with a campaign. Like imagine they ship a campaign or something big, and Apex Legends 2 or something along those lines that brings a new audience in, mixed with the marketing campaign to bring people in. And then on the other side of that funnel, I think what's needed is we need something other than ranked. Like I'm sorry, but ranked, especially with cheaters and with where ranked is at, like it's just the same old grind every single time. Start in bronze, work your way up. Anyway, it's still fun. Don't get rid of ranked. I think we need something one step beyond ranked. You can't get that until you fix the cheater issue, which is a whole other topic. But like imagine an in-game tournament system that allows people to actually experience more competitive games. You can queue with Apex coins, so it's a revenue stream for them. It's a path to profitability, but like an in-game, tournament at this time, cash cup type format. I feel like we need something there, something more enticing. We need like a huge shakeup, not just more game modes. I thought. I'd love to get your take. Obviously, you grind the game and stuff.
I mean, bro, that in-game tournament thing, you could base it off of KD, bro. It would be a cash cow for EA. I think that's genius. I think one really tough thing for Apex is when you're actually starting to get into Apex, it's a tough game to pick up, right? And I can't tell you how many times I'm playing pubs because I'm looking for a ranked squad because nobody's on because they're tired of cheaters. And I'm playing pubs and I run into a guy who's on his, first couple days of Apex. And he's like, bro, you just shit on me, blah, blah, blah. And, like I know it was season 17, but I was the rank 1, player in the shittiest season, mind you. But should never, if you're a brand new player, you should never be versing somebody at a high level. So I think, a bunch of these new players pick up Apex because it looks fun and they get shit on bad, and then you just don't want to play anymore. And I see it in chat all the time. But I think a new, I would love 4-man would be fun. How would a 4th legend sort of play into the mix? I would love maybe I think you hit the nail on the head with the marketing campaigns, man. I think at the beginning of Apex, they had Tim the Tatman, Ninja, all these, really big Shroud, all these really big content creators playing it, and it opened, Apex to the eyes of millions of people worldwide. But dude, I love this game. I've been playing it for 5 years.
Once you play, you're hooked. We just got to get more people to play and experience it and get hooked like we all have. Yeah,
exactly.
That's spot on. Eric, any other thoughts on the state of Apex, state of ranked right now?
Yeah, I mean, for me, one thing. I mean, I've been personally enjoying solos a lot. I think solos is a great game type for people that don't have like a squad to run on. Like, I get tired of playing control and lockdown after X amount of time. It's just kind of brain off and just shoot a bunch of people. I think solos has been extremely refreshing. I hope they keep that around because I think from a viewership standpoint, the people on my stream prefer me playing solos right now over watching me play ranked due to the cheater situation. And it's tough as a viewer to watch games, watch a bunch of looting, unless you're playing with like a really entertaining group of 3 people that can, keep the vibes up no matter what. Then it's fun to watch solos because there's tons of outplayability. I've just been maining alter nonstop on solos just because I can, pull people from walls. I can do cool tricks, and I feel like that outplayability is there, and I'm not running into as many cheaters. And then I look into like, I don't think adding more game types is good. That kind of splits the player base. I've seen Halo do this, and it kind of just pulls the community apart of what everyone really enjoys instead of like the beginning of Apex where it was all forced, trios. I think it's good to have options, kind of LTM options. And I think one thing that's really missing is like those marketing campaigns that's been brought up is like we used to have the dummies day off, where it was just like the base character model, and it was like very low key abilities, like really nothing, and then extra loot on player drops. Like, where are the collabs with, whether it's like movies that are, I think that's one thing that Fortnite did that was incredible, is they had these collabs with artists, they have these collabs with Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, nonstop things. Like, why can't we get random fun LTMs that, maybe we get these characters in these games with some funny memeage like abilities, and just like something different, because we just had a gigantic overhaul with Apex. If you look at Apex, like, we had an insane overhaul with how the whole system works, the evos, weapons, like everything. There needs to be something more that's not just like sweaty Apex grind, and it brings people to have a good time, because everyone that I know that's new to this game gets absolutely obliterated and doesn't want to play anymore because they're a new account.
That's right.
And within 2 games, they're getting matched up with people that have 20,000 kills. And it's like, I have had a lot of friends and people that want to play to be able to play with me, and that's their experience. And I tell them to go play TDMs or whatever it is. And it's like, there's no real way to learn how to get better on your own. And then there's no fun X side thing that you can do that you can like relieve and still play with your friends without the stress of like having to perform well. So I think there's some things that could be done. Some collabs would be super, super cool for the game. I like I said, I commend Fortnite for that. I think that's one of the coolest things that they've done, and it's helped their game out tremendously.
Apex did it too with that. Was it anime shit? What was that thing? Anime thing.
A couple of the skins. Yeah, they did like
Final Fantasy.
They did like the skins in the battle axe, but those were just like strictly cosmetics.
Yeah, it wasn't a big collab,
and it was super costly. Like it was to participate in that fully. So just some fun. And we've had the same April Fool's game mode how many times now with like the Mozambiques or whatever it is. And that's fun and all, but I think it would just be fun to have some different type of collabs to get the casuals and get.
They did do the Post Malone crossover, which was okay. That was pretty fun. It wasn't like a big LTM for that, but it was at least like eyes on the game, and they had some EA Creator Network events where they played 3 strikes with Post Malone on stream, and that was pretty fun. But aside from the Final Fantasy crossover, which was like, they had the weird materia stuff in pubs. They did like a pubs takeover, but everybody kind of disliked it because you couldn't play normal pubs. You couldn't get away from that. So they got to find a middle ground, and I'm sure there's a lot of data analytics into like splitting up your player base and increasing queue times. It's stuff like that. There's so much more that we can't appreciate that goes into it, but it'd be fun to see a lot more.
Yep. And then
I got one more thing to honestly add on to all this. It's so much easier to say than do. I mean, there's tons of finances and things that need to get approved behind the scenes. And I mean, respect to EA for even keeping the game alive as long as they have. Like, this is not easy to keep your game as popular as Apex has been. So, they're obviously doing a lot of things really well. And, we're all here to talk about, things that we just would like to see the game thrive, because this is, what we do. But I think one more thing that would be super cool is like, ranked has this like attachment to it from the outside now, where it's not that meaningful or impactful as it used to be, like being the number 1 pred or whatever. And something that used to be done, do you remember the game type where it was pubs, where it recorded the number of games that you got like top 5 in, and the grind for that was unbelievable. If they released like a tournament mode for a, like, not ranked, but a tournament mode of your stats with the leaderboard and things like that, I think you would see the pro community, you would see everyone rally and try their ass off in these games to get those cosmetic badges that we had back early on that people tried for. And then you just need to have people who are watching over that playlist. Like, yeah, the elite queue. You just need to have people watching over that playlist who are heavily, heavily monitoring for cheaters to try and make it as much of a point of, hey, we hear you, this is something we want to do, give you guys cosmetics, tools, things like that. And they might be like, oh, we could just do that with ranked, but it's different. Like, there's like this like mindset of a new playlist, and that's the playlist. I'm going to be the first. I'm going to be this and that. And I think that would be pretty cool to show, like, hey, we're doing this, we're supporting this, we're trying something new, and we're going to watch over it so we know that the results are legitimized.
Hear me out. So, did you guys play that 3 strikes thing that just sort of recently came out where it had the leaderboard?
Yeah, sick.
Bro, that was the most fun I've had in pubs in so long, and only because of a leaderboard. I think, dude, Apex, I know it's tough. Dude, give me a leaderboard. In-game leaderboard. give me some more news on ALGS and stuff in game. Like, give me a whole little section, like the shop, where I could go find out about players, their accolades, what's going on, when's the next LAN, all that. Better anti-cheat, please. I'm begging you. And better ranked rewards, right? Like, think about if in ranked, the top 120 players in the world could all, play in a tournament. And from that tournament, you could have prizes, you could have money, whatever it is. But the grind that people would put in would be insane, right? Or even like top 100 people get sweaters with their name on it, something like that, which is relatively cheap.
Sweaters,
right? Dude, anything, bro, anything. So
we're talking like
so
Christmas,
specific.
like knitted, like
That's very specific.
Anything, bro. But the number one ranked player should get a trophy. Should get a trophy, dude. Right?
You got a trophy.
So,
Do you still have the piece of paper?
ALGS. I am officially the only number one ranked player in the world with the trophy, and this was given to me by Alex Frostwolf here at Champs in Birmingham. But believe it or not, this is a piece of paper, and I love it. This is one of my most prized possessions, dude.
You have it in your desk readily available. Wow.
I have it right here. I gotta frame it, and I'm just way too busy.
Yeah, it's crazy what those little mechanisms do. Leaderboards, top 5, the elite queue kind of concept. Madden used to have something like that. It was called Gridiron Gauntlet or something, where the best of the best would basically get to compete in a special ladder. So EA has done it. There's precedence there. I think a tournament mode. But all that said, all that is contingent on cheating problem being solved. And that's one thing is everyone complains about it. We need solutions, not complainers. And I think one kind of idea thought there on solutioning on cheaters is actually someone in the community named The Law 1776. Verls, you rated him once. Kudos to you for that. He's awesome, badass, 2-time Medal of Valor achiever. He was a San Francisco cop. He was an Oakland cop. He's like an insanely talented. He was hit at some point. He was a police officer, and he's like, do some detective work. Like, he did some reverse engineering to figure out how are people buying cheats. Go find those companies and shell companies or whoever they are that are buying cheats, figure out how they're doing it, take them down. Like, I don't know. We don't know what's going on. Obviously, ADA and Respawn, I'm sure there's a lot that's happening, but it seems like it's kind of a whack-a-mole approach, and you're never going to win in a security war against a whack-a-mole approach where you're just trying to ban these cheaters from popping up. You got to go to the source and take down the kingpins that are out there. So I really do hope that there is some progress made on that front, because obviously it's just a problem that continues to manifest. And all of these features, these competitive features, are not going to be possible if there's cheaters that are taking everyone's sweaters, and then they're going to be wearing the sweaters instead.
Yep. And one quick thing here. One, I want to give a huge shout out to the devs.
Absolutely.
Everybody at EA, right? Because, dude, I love this game, right? You guys have ruined all FPSs for me since I started playing it, because none are as good as Apex, right? And I appreciate everything you guys have done. I do want more, and I know it's tough when there's so many channels that you have to go through to sort of get stuff done. And then to the viewers, anti-cheat is tough, man. Believe it or not, because EA could invest millions and millions of dollars on a new anti-cheat, or hundreds of thousands of dollars on a bigger security team. Just manually banning cheaters. But the thing is, bro, the cheat industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? Like, there are people making hundreds of millions of dollars every year from just producing cheats and selling them. So I know Activision has been doing something where they're like
suing lawsuits.
Yeah. But dude, I think until you can actually bankrupt these people and bankrupt these cheat companies, you're not really doing anything. It's like a slap on the wrist. So, but I love y'all. All right. Yeah.
It's a fact. Absolute fact.
Love you guys.
And that's the most important. Look, we can have these discussions. We can all have ideas, and brainstorm, and it's all because we love this game. But that should never be accompanied with hate towards devs or hate towards anyone. So I'm glad, Snipe, I'm glad you guys both brought that up. And everyone watching right now, too. Look, these are humans that are doing their absolute freaking best. And these are really, really hard problems to solve. And Apex is a really, really freaking good game at the end of the day. We are so lucky, guys. I came from Gears. Eric came from Halo. There's other games that have it much, much worse and have historically. So a massive shout out and thank you to Respawn for making the game we all know and love, and obviously we all have a lot of passion for it. So with that said, guys, we always wrap up with State of Apex Legends, kind of thoughts, open discussion. I think it's healthy to have these discussions, and from that, hopefully some action results. But I want to wrap up now. Closing thoughts from each and every single one of y'all. It's been a long show, but it really just hella great content. So thank you everyone for sticking with us for 2+ hours. Closing thoughts. Your floor is yours to wrap up the conversation. Snipe, start with you.
Honestly, I didn't expect this to last as long as it did. I think we touched on some amazing topics, and it kind of just it flowed pretty well. So I mean, just shout out to you guys coming on the show, making it easy. I feel like I'm kicking back. I wish I had a beer that I could just be drinking with the homies. This is like a squad that we'd go on vacation with and vibe with and just talk about pretty much everything. So always a pleasure having you guys. I got a lot of good takes from the chat, and so thank you guys for being involved in the chat. You guys interacting and really showing up for these streams is what keeps them alive and what keeps us doing what we're doing. So thank you for the support, and we're gonna do our best to bring this back every single week with some other special guests, and just I guess thank you.
Pete?
Dude, I just feel blessed to be able to do this. You know what I mean? I love this game. I love the community. It's insane, man. It's insane. And yeah, no, thank you guys for having me. It was fun. And to the next one.
Straight, thanks for coming on, brother. And Verhol, speaking of Snip3down said, I feel like I'm on vacation with the boys. The only one that did not join us on vacation in Greece.
I'm sorry.
Verhol, even though he was invited.
You did.
Verhol's. Any final thoughts?
Well, I appreciate you guys for having me on. It's always a blast in this podcast. It's effortless to talk for the almost 2 hours we were on just now. It's super easy to talk about whatever. You guys have some great topics, and it's always fun, bouncing back and forth. And I just want to say I appreciate all you guys watching. You guys are the best. I also want to say I appreciate all the fans supporting TSM right now. We're going through a rough change, having to figure out how to IGL, and it's tough. We do a lot of work, and we realize that, and we're putting all the work in right now. And I think we're feeling a bit more confident day by day going into these next weeks of Pro League. And I just want to say appreciate all you guys for supporting us, and you guys have some good weeks to look forward to, I think.
I love it. The Evan and Reps co-IGL arc fully activated. It's a fun story to follow. Thank you so much, Evan, for joining us. That's my first thank you is Evan and people. Amazing guests, Evan. Every time you join, man, it's remarkable insights, your takes, both the hype ones, and you also tell it like it is. People don't realize how much you tell it like it is on this broadcast. So I appreciate that. Massive thank you to every single person watching, everyone supporting. If you guys don't mind hitting the follow button, go to YouTube and subscribe on the YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify. All that stuff helps tremendously. The reason I say that is not just schlepping. It's genuinely, we want to make this consistent. I know we disappeared for like 6 to 8 months. It's because we've all invested a lot of time and money into this, and we have not made any money on this. So with that said, any support would certainly be appreciated, because we're going to try and go and get some sponsors for this thing so we can pay our staff who works really, really hard at making these broadcasts like truly Sports Center ESPN-like. On that note, thank you to our staff. Big thank you to Beemic, our producer. The guy lives and breathes Apex Legends, does this in addition to his full-time job and his secondary job that he does this on his side. Chrono Creative, obviously our creative director, killing it with graphics and his passion for Apex and all that he does. Bella and our entire team. Thank you to the entirety of the squad for watching. Eric is going to be live, I think. Eric, you streaming after this or no?
Yeah, I'm gonna turn the stream on. I'm gonna fire it up after this. I don't usually do that, but
support the boy Snip3down. He's going to go live right after the show. And again, massive thank you everyone for supporting and watching, hitting the follow button and the like. Well, this will be live on Spotify and YouTube immediately following, probably tomorrow morning, the show, and we'll be hopefully posting some more content. Make sure to follow at Apex After Hours on Twitter. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Have a great night. Happy ALGS kickoff weekend, and make it a great week. Thanks, everybody.